Well, good evening, everyone. I am Katie Moore here with WWL Louisiana in our studios tonight. It is an exciting night for the city of New Orleans and beyond. Thanks so much for joining us for our Elections on 4 coverage. It is a historic night. Many hot races up for election tonight, of course, including New Orleans mayor. Incumbent Mayor LaToya Cantrell, of course, is term limited. And so now we have an open field of candidates, and many of them are really excited to see how those votes start pouring in. Now, the polls are still open at this hour. The polls actually close at 8 o'clock tonight. So you still have about an hour to get out there and cast your vote if you haven't done that yet. We are so excited that we have such an esteemed panel of experts and analysts who are going to be joining me in the studio throughout the night as we continue our Elections on 4 coverage. With me right now, WWL political analyst Clancy Dubos and sociology professor at Xavier University, Dr. Silas Lee. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Silas, also an expert pollster. We'll have Ron Fauché with us in just a little bit as well. So you three really are the big dogs in town when it comes to talking about politics and elections. And I'm so excited that you can be with us.
Well, of course, we're excited to be here.
Yes.
It is an exciting night. It really is. It's not quite a Super Bowl, but it's kind of like the Saints playing for the NFC Championship.
It's close, huh? Well, what are we looking for tonight as we start to see the polls close? Of course, again, they're still open for another hour, as I mentioned. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to should get out there and exercise that right?
Of course, yeah. And what we're looking for is to see a couple of big questions that loom towards the end of this campaign. Silas and I have been talking about it for days now, if not weeks. Can Helena Moreno, who has led in all the polls by a wide margin, win it outright tonight? Will there be a winner or a runoff in the race for sheriff? Will there be a winner or a runoff in any of the at-large races? The race for clerk of criminal court, which is normally not a hotly contested race, but that one really got red hot this year.
You know what's interesting is one, the clerk of criminal court and the sheriff, they turned out to be reality shows of politics in many ways. And in reference to the sheriff, that was very interesting. She unseated an incumbent. It looks like she might be unseated by a newcomer. No, not really a newcomer, but someone with law enforcement experience. And I've never seen an election with so many intervening circumstances in reference to the jail outbreak, in reference to the
consent decree,
the cyber attack. There have been so many events outside of the scope of the sheriff that's impacted this election.
And of course, when you say she unseated an incumbent, we're talking about incumbent sheriff. Well, she unseated Marlon Gusman. We're talking about incumbent Susan Hudson.
Susan Hudson, yes. And of course, Michelle Woodfork has been leading in the polls. That's something that you've been keeping tabs on very closely, Dr. Lee.
It's going to be interesting, too, looking at trends. We've been looking at early vote turnout. That's one. Then we want to see where the votes go with the early vote and what happens with the votes coming in from election day and what impact that will have. Certain areas, they had a high turnout. Some areas matched in terms of black-white turnout. And overall, it seems like this election energized voters. New face, an opportunity to turn the page, really close the book and start an entirely new book in reference to rejuvenating the culture, the politics, and something we'll talk about maybe later is that of the social engagement of people, the social climate that we live in. When you look at the polls consistently over the past 4 years, 60 to 70% of the people said wrong direction. 60% said the children may have, 80% said the children may have to leave. When we looked at infrastructure, people are concerned about infrastructure that is impeding economic development as well as the ability to get affordable insurance for the home and cars. So it's quality of life issues. First time crime is not number one in terms of voters wanting the next administration to focus on a particular issue.
And
to show you how severe that quality of life issue is, it's the first time in my political lifetime, which goes back more than 50 years, that an incumbent who reduced crime significantly gets no credit for that because of the other overarching issues, the total dysfunction of City Hall itself, which if things had just been working at an average level, LaToya Cantrell would probably be going out a hero.
And that's a very good point because this is the official election. The unofficial election occurs on a daily basis when people get in their cars, when they walk to work and go or in their neighborhoods, and either they hit a bump or the street light's not working, something is not working effectively, and they don't feel that government is listening and responding. That's the vote that we see in reference to right direction and wrong direction.
Yes, and I think that's been really reflected in the campaigns that these mayoral candidates in particular have run. I mean, we've seen obviously Helena Moreno running on a, we are going to get the city moving in a different direction and talking a lot about that infrastructure piece and the functioning of city services. Then you have Royce Duplessis running on similar themes, as well as Oliver Thomas.
As an outsider,
yeah.
Royce cast Oliver Thomas and Helena Moreno as insiders who didn't get it done while they were there. But that message only got a little bit of traction, not much. What's interesting is that Helena Moreno, who's been in state government and then city government for the last 8 years, is seen by voters as the agent of change.
Interesting.
And she's an 8-year incumbent on the council. But what the change they're talking about when voters say that is change in the direction of the city, change in tone, change in governing style and
you know what that brings up the fact of? Political branding. How she has been able to brand herself in the past 8 years. She was also a state legislator as well as in the media here. That branding carried over to her political career. Royce Duplessis establishing his political brand. And we look at Oliver Thomas, another candidate who has a political brand. So we looking at candidates, they have unique styles and personalities and the unique political brand they have been able to try to market to voters. This is the marketplace.
And they're all running for the same office, but they ran 3 very distinct campaigns that reflect their brands and who they are.
Absolutely, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in the polls tonight. And we want to visit the crews that we have out in the field now. We have crews all over the place covering all of the biggest candidates. And first off tonight is Sharice Gibson and Devin Bartolotta. They are joining us live over at the Helena Moreno campaign, where her party is expected to, really kick off in about an hour. Sharice and Devin, how are things right now?
So far, so good. Things are pretty quiet, and we are at the Civic Theater where a bunch of Helena Moreno supporters are starting to arrive in the theater behind us, and it looks like there's going to be a pretty good crowd here.
Yeah, just within the last 10 minutes or so, things have kind of picked up. We're seeing people trickle in. They're still setting up for food and drinks and things like that, but they are expecting a pretty packed crowd tonight. I'm sure they're hoping for a victory party.
Yeah, they hope that she can pull off the upset. Of course, Clancy and Dr. Silas Lee can tell us this a little bit earlier. They mentioned that she was leading in all of the independent polls. Now they're hoping that she can lead into a victory, winning the majority. That is the big question a lot of people have. Can she pull off the upset and win the majority in what has been really a kind of bitter race? We have had Helena Moreno, you have Arthur Hunter, who dropped out of that race, Royce Duplessis coming into that race a little bit late, and of course Oliver Thomas, Royce Duplessis and Oliver Thomas in all of those independent polls behind Moreno, and you had Arthur Hunter jumping in to support Royce Duplessis, even though his name was still on the ballot.
Yeah, these last few weeks of the campaign, we were talking about this a little bit ago, have been kind of a little crazy. We've seen some ads, some mudslinging. We've also seen some last-minute endorsements for several candidates, including Helena Moreno. So we'll see how much of an effect all of that has on the polls tonight.
All right, so right now we're standing by. Civic Theater is starting to fill up. We're starting to hear a little more voices. It was quiet a little bit earlier, but we see the cars coming up. DJ is set up. We have people that are setting up behind us. And one thing Devin and I talked about a little bit earlier, and I'm sure we can talk about a little bit later, is the social media presence for all of these candidates.
Starting to come in. We're seeing some of the local social media personalities that have been very involved in this campaign. So I'm sure this is going to fill up. We're going to have lots more to talk about during our next several check-ins with you. For now, we'll send it back to you at the station.
And we do have Brandon Walker and Brianna Boudreau. They are standing by live tonight. They are going to be covering Oliver Thomas tonight. So how are things where you are, guys?
Well, good evening to you, Katie, here from Maison Blanche, not the department store, but the event venue here in New Orleans East, where the action right now is pretty quiet. You've got Team Thomas still setting up for what they hope will be a victorious night.
Yes, good evening to all of you. Brandon Walker, Brianna Boudreau here. And we've got a couple of people who have already filed in. They're kind of sitting, waiting, sort of looking in this direction. Got the DJ set up. I'm sure you guys can hear that behind us. But it seems like a little bit of a calm atmosphere in here at the moment. But I know a lot of people excited to see as the night unfolds.
Yeah, most definitely. Had the chance to speak to a staffer from the Thomas campaign a few minutes ago. Asked him how he was feeling today about everything. And he says he's feeling quite well. They're hoping to push Helena Moreno into a runoff. And they do think that will be able to edge out Royce Duplessis. Spent some time on the campaign trail today too with some supporters of Oliver Thomas, particularly in Algiers as they were campaigning, and there was a lot of enthusiasm behind that very point. People hopeful that they'll be able to not only get Helena Moreno to a runoff, but that Thomas will be able to edge past Royce Duplessis.
Did this same uptown where along St. Charles, there was a lot of those people standing outside, and they had their signs on the corner of the street. And when I spoke to them, they said, look, it's just about reminding people that you do have to get out to the polls, that it's a very important election, as many people spoke to me about something that Oliver Thomas has emphasized during his campaign, and that's that there's a lack of trust with the government currently. And so one of the things that a lot of people spoke to me about is that they just want to remind people they need to vote for someone who they can rely on to be transparent, and those people out there today told me that Oliver Thomas is that person for them.
Yeah, Thomas has said that he would run a city that works for everyone, according to his policy plan on his campaign website as well, pointing to what many would agree are very frustrating factors here about the city of New Orleans when it comes to, for instance, street repair. Thomas has a plan, for instance, 10,000 new affordable homes here within the next 10 years. He says it's time for New Orleans to get working again, and he says if elected, he'll do just that.
He also mentioned a lot about the structure as well as just waste in general. So if you follow along with some of his campaign promises, he said he wants to erect different places throughout government, a mayoral ethics committee who will double check on anything that is being wasted to make sure that the money is being appropriated where it should be. And that's something else a lot of people talked about today, that they want to have a checks and balances where they can in real time see if there is a problem, how is it being handled.
Right, and Thomas has been honest about what it means, corruption, getting corruption out of City Hall. He himself spending time in federal prison after pleading guilty to bribery charges, ultimately resigning from his council post back in 2007, rebuilding his life, as he put it, to ultimately be reelected to city government back in 2002 here in District E. Oliver Thomas hopeful tonight that he will do what many hoped and many thought that he would have done years ago, and that is run for mayor and win. So it's just a matter of time. We'll see what happens tonight once polls close.
Many expected to see that happen in 2010, so could it happen in 2025? We'll have to see. We'll stay tuned though, talking with those in the room and just kind of feeling out the atmosphere and keep you updated on everything here at the headquarters for Oliver Thomas.
All right, thanks so much, guys. Lots to hear about tonight as these parties really start going and we start to get some results in at around 8 o'clock. Thanks so much. Now we also have a great crew out covering the third frontrunner for the mayor's race in New Orleans, Royce Duplessis. Joining us now, Mike McDaniel, Lily Cummings. Those two, you guys, how is the party where you are for Royce Duplessis? Obviously, this is a big night for all three of these candidates and, in fact, the entire field. But how are things where you are?
Well, it hasn't started just yet, so at this point it's just the media as well as staff still getting things set up around here. You can kind of hear the DJ over here. Lily and I have been tapping our feet here a little bit, but the doors are for the rest of the supporters and everybody who wants to come out and really throw their support behind Royce Duplessis. That's going to be at 8 o'clock, so we still have some time before these doors open out here. But they're still getting everything set up. Of course, Royce Duplessis, the candidate that almost wasn't in this race, deciding early on back in January that he wasn't going to do this. And he talked with supporters. He said he relied on his faith, and then all of a sudden, 5-6 months later, he decided to jump in this race, and now here he is as one of the front runners.
Right. This summer, announcing that he was going to jump into this race, kind of positioning himself as the native son of New Orleans, growing up in Pontchartrain Park, a St. Aug grad, Xavier grad, only leaving New Orleans to get that law degree from Howard University before returning here to Louisiana. Of course, we've seen him kind of rise up through the political ranks. Obviously, he's an attorney, but he captured that seat for House of Representatives back in 2018. Then you saw him again capture a seat for State Senate, District 5. Now he's looking to take a seat as mayor. This would be his first local seat, obviously serving on that state level for some time now. but he would be new to City Hall.
And that's one of the things that he hopes will set him apart. He is not entrenched in local municipal politics when it comes to the city council or as the mayor. You've seen him on the campaign trail as well as his television ads really harping on that the chaos at City Hall is at City Hall among the two candidates who are also running for mayor, that of course being Helena Moreno and Oliver Thomas. So he's really trying to distance himself, and he has been ever since he got in this race, to really show that he's the outsider in this race to become mayor, and he's the one to get it done.
One thing that I think all of the candidates have kind of elaborated on their platforms, Mike, has been that out-migration that we've seen here in New Orleans, losing so many residents, whether that's to high insurance costs, tax rates, all of that. So he is running a platform that's focused not only on that, but also housing, wanting to add 40,000 units in the next 10 years if elected. He's also focusing on universal pre-K. Those are kind of the top three things in this campaign that I've seen him elaborate on and really focus in on as he makes this run for mayor.
And that's really one of the common threads that you see with all three of these candidates, these frontrunners, because just like the other two, he's really entrenched in these neighborhoods. He serves in positions politically that, you're in these different wards, you're in these different areas. So he really knows these blocks in the city from the block up. So just like those other two candidates, they're all kind of fighting at that grassroots level. Like they want to know where the street, the pothole is. They want to know where the tree is down. And a lot of them can name these streets because they're from here, like you said. He's Gentilly, born and raised.
Right.
He's not from politics. His family didn't get into this. They just wanted him to be, successful and a good person, and really taught him the importance of being kind and helping people. And that's kind of one of the things that he has always said has really pushed him into politics and made him want to do that for the city of New Orleans.
Look, Royce had a lot of ground to make up coming into this race late as he did. He's made a lot of strides in fundraising. Obviously, at the time that he entered the race, you have Helena Moreno already with $1 million in that campaign bank account. He's now raised more than $500,000, so he's caught up quickly, and he had to, right? So it'll be interesting to see if that pays off tonight. I think recent polling did show that Oliver Thomas had a slight edge above Royce, but I really think tonight is anybody's ball game.
Oh yeah, and that really shows his viability in this race, that he was able to make up so much ground both in his name as well as fundraising to get to the point where he is today, to be one of these front runners, because someone coming into the race way later has a lot of ground to make up, and he, to his credit, has done a really good job doing that, because a lot of people in the city may know him as the state senator or the former representative, but what's he going to do as mayor? I think he's been able to get his platform and his campaign messages out there a lot, because he wants to be the one that is different from the others.
I think he does have that state level recognition. He's obviously made a name for himself serving for us at the Capitol. Sometimes on the House floor or the Senate floor now, having those hard conversations going face to face with both sides of the aisle. So it will be interesting to see if, that state level recognition pays off.
And it very well could, at least maybe pushing it to a runoff. If it's between Helena Moreno, of course, she's been polling way ahead of the other two, that being Duplessis and Thomas. So maybe he's hoping this night will help catapult him into that next level, and then he can be able to garner the rest of the support.
All right, well, more to come tonight from the Lakefront Airport. It's a beautiful setting here, beautiful building, so we will keep you updated on all that is to come for Royce Duplessis tonight. We'll send it back to you all in the studio.
All right, some great points made there. We will have much more Elections on 4 coverage for you after a short break. Elections on 4 coverage. A historic night for the city of New Orleans. Voters will either elect a new mayor outright or tell us who's headed to a runoff. In addition, we have lots of city council races up for grabs in New Orleans. A couple of races here and there in other parishes as well. But it is a hot button night for voters in the city of New Orleans in particular. So can't wait to dive in and get those first results from the polls once they close at 8 o'clock tonight. We do have an indication already, though, what the early voting numbers look like. And I think we also get the absentee ballots right after the polls close at 8. So we'll have to see how those turn out and those numbers look once that happens. And we do have 2 of the best political analysts in town with me here in the studio tonight. We have Clancy Dubose and we have Dr. Silas Lee here joining me. And, you know, it is just a great night. I know you both, this is like you're almost Super Bowl, you said.
We live for this.
Yeah. Yes, you've been doing it so long. You all know the political fabric of this town. And what are the biggest factors you think that are going to affect how these races play out and what we're seeing in terms of turnout? We'll start with you, Clancy, and then go to voter enthusiasm.
Which candidates' voters are the most anxious and enthusiastic about their candidate to make sure they go out and vote? Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
It's all about turnout.
Okay.
And the other component to that, it's about emotions.
Yep.
Touching the emotions of people, talking about issues they are concerned about, well, most importantly, making them feel that you have a connection to their experiences.
Okay.
That one, you understand it, you can relate to it, and most of all, that you have a strategy to address or present some solutions to their concerns.
Okay, well, thank you both for that. And we do want to check in with Amelia Strahan. She is live tonight at one of the polling locations out there. She can kind of give us an idea of how traffic's been looking and whether or not the candidates have successfully done those things that Clancy and Silas just talked about, Amelia.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are seeing a few last-minute voters trickle in. The traffic was much heavier when we got here about an hour ago. But we were curious, you know, what are the main voter issues here in District A? So we asked some of the voters as they were walking in, what is bringing you to the polls today? And at least here in District A, we heard 2 things, and those were streets and safety. Now, District A it's uptown, Lakeview, and mid-city. And we spoke to one voter who said she's actually lived near this school her whole life. She said that she actually rode up and down these bumpy streets, and she hopes that new leadership will bring some change to the city.
I think safety is one of the top issues. I want the city to be safe. And then also road construction, because we still always have these holes and they're repairing them and they're, barricades all over the place.
Now there are 2 main front runners in this race replacing Councilmember Joe Geruso, and those are going to be Amy McCarron and then, of course, Holly Friedman. And we spoke to voters. We heard about 50-50, so it'll be interesting to see, kind of how things play out this evening.
All right, that sounds great, Amelia. We are looking forward to hearing about those council races as well. Of course, the future of the city is at stake tonight, so can't wait to have more Elections on 4 coverage right after this short break. Another race that we are keeping very close tabs on tonight is the race for Orleans Parish Sheriff. Of course, there have been a lot of big news events that have affected the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office in recent weeks, and we want to go out to Winston Reed, who is live with the current incumbent sheriff, Susan Hudson, where her campaign celebration is happening tonight. So, Winston, what's the mood like there?
Katie, I'm live in the French Quarter where incumbent Susan Hudson is having her election watch party, and we are here at Twisted Waffles on Dauphine Street. It's a bit of an intimate venue, so a relatively smaller election watch party, and it really doesn't begin for another 30 minutes. So crews are just setting up, getting the food and everything ready, but guests and the incumbent Susan Hudson has not arrived as of yet. Of course, those polls are still open. They close at 8, and when the polls close is when the party really begins here in the French Quarter. Now, Susan Hudson, the incumbent in this race, she actually defeated incumbent Marlon Guzman back in 2021, and she entered office as a candidate who can offer reform to the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, but she enters this race now with low approval ratings from the voters and with a lot of criticism and controversy surrounding her jail. And that main controversy is the 10 inmates that escaped from her jail over the summer. Now, all 10 inmates have been captured, including the latest escaped inmate and the last one who was still on the run, Derek Groves, which a lot of Louisiana leaders tout as a victory. However, it is fresh on the mind of voters as they hit the polls for this election cycle, and a lot of voters are thinking about that, considering the fact that the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office has been in the headlines, in the news, leading up to this election. In fact, there was also that other mistaken release from of an inmate after those 10 inmates escaped as well. So it seems like the Sheriff's Office has found itself in controversy constantly leading up to this election. And let's not forget about the cybersecurity attack leading up to that debate with the top 3 Sheriff's Office candidates in our WWL studio. So a lot has been said about this race and about this particular candidate, Sheriff Susan Hudson, the incumbent in this race. She was the first black woman to take over as the sheriff for Orleans Parish, but she's faced a lot of criticism. She's addressed a lot of that criticism, but those questions are still swirling as she is set to come to this election party, and we will have the latest from this election party as those results come in. Just want to inform the voters, the new term for the Orleans Parish Sheriff does not start until the first Monday in May of next year. So if her opponents, either Michelle Woodfork or Edwin Shorty, the constable, do happen to win this election, they will not begin their term until the first Monday in May of 2026. So just informing the voters of that, it'll be kind of a long, stretched out period before that transition actually completes for the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. But we're going to have the latest from tonight's election party. We'll have the latest from the incumbent Susan Hudson, who should be arriving sometime within the next 30 minutes. Reporting live here in the French Quarter, Winston Reed, WWL, Louisiana.
All right, Winston, thanks so much. It's a much different situation for her this time than it was when she was first elected. I know that delay in taking office was difficult, something that she really had to overcome. So we'll check back with you in just a little while. But we also want to go out to Paul Murphy. Paul Murphy is joining us live with Michelle Woodfork's campaign party tonight. She's garnered a lot of support in the community. Paul?
Well, Katie, they are already cranking up the music here at Sweet Lorraine's in the St. Claude neighborhood, where Sheriff's candidate Michelle Woodfork and her supporters will be gathering to watch the vote be counted. We're told that Woodfork spent the day doing some last-minute campaigning from the West Bank to the East Bank. She also stopped by the Gentilly Fest for a while, then went over to New Orleans East to do a little more campaigning, and that's also where her day began. Throughout this hotly contested sheriff's race, former NOPD Superintendent Michelle Woodfork had enjoyed a double-digit lead in most polls. She told WWL Louisiana she has the right stuff to unseat incumbent Sheriff Susan Hudson. Woodfork has seized on the escape of those 10 prison inmates, calling it an example of Hudson's gross mismanagement of the jail. If elected, she vowed to get to the bottom of all those problems at the Parish jail. Woodfork made history as the first woman to lead the NOPD. She said that she offered and implemented a plan with the NOPD that resulted in a 25% reduction in violent crime. She retired from the police department 2 years ago and joined the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office, where she is currently the Director of Forensic Intelligence. Woodfork claims that it is her experience that sets her apart from the rest of the candidates in the Orleans Parish Sheriff's race. And we're told that Michelle Woodfork will be getting here to Sweet Lorraine's about a half hour from now, and the party is just getting started here on St. Claude Avenue. We're live in the St. Claude neighborhood, Paul Murphy, WWL, Louisiana.
All right, Paul, the first of many check-ins with him as we continue through the night, as the city of New Orleans and Orleans Parish make history electing a number of new top leaders. We'll have more Elections on 4 coverage right after a short break. All right, while it is a big night for Orleans Parish in particular, there are a couple of races that are also hot button races in other parishes in the surrounding areas. I know there's at least one other election happening in Jefferson Parish. And of course, over on the North Shore in St. Tammany Parish, the city of Slidell has a big mayoral election there as well. Meg Ferris covering that for us tonight. She's joining us live with a first sneak peek of what's happening out there in Slidell. Meg?
Well, good evening, Katie. Photographer Mike Milan and I will be going back and forth between the two candidates. That's Bill Borchett, and he is a businessman from this area. He has been council at large, and he took over the mayor's position in January when Mayor Comer was appointed to a position in Governor Landry's office. So this is a special election. So whoever wins tonight, he or the current police chief, Randy Fandel, will be filling in until June 30th. There's going to be another mayoral election in the spring to elect the person who will take the seat for 4 years. Now, he has been talking about growing jobs in the city. Slidell, he has been talking about creating new businesses, while Randy Fandel has been talking about, as well, both of them, drainage, fixing streets, growing the recreation department, cutting government spending. He has also said that he did not favor the city buying part of the abandoned North Shore Mall, whereas Bill Burchard said that he did want the city to do that. And of course, that deal fell through, but they may still be able to buy part of it. So that's what's going on here. We have a current police chief who is running for the seat. If he wins, Randy Fandel wins, he will be the third Slidell police chief to hold that seat. And if Bill wins, then he will continue this interim position for till June 30th, but still would have to be reelected in the spring to continue for 4 years. Now, I'm told that there has been a huge war chest, that the two candidates have spent more money than normal. And also over here, I'm told that voter turnout hasn't been so wonderful. There was about 11% that started in early voting September 27th, but overall some of the polls say they haven't gotten a lot of people. Now, I'm also told that because small turnout, small area, that we could know as soon as 8:10 or 8:15 who the winner is tonight. But we'll be back and forth from both candidates' places. They're just 5 blocks apart here in Old Town Slidell. Reporting live for our election coverage, Meg Farris, WWL, Louisiana.
All right, lots of hot issues over there on the North Shore as well. Lots of eyeballs on that race, and Meg's going to cover it for us as we continue through the night. We're just getting started here with our Elections on 4 coverage. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing our Elections on 4 coverage tonight. A big night for the city of New Orleans, the city of Slidell. There is an election in Jefferson Parish as well, and mostly all eyes are here in Orleans Parish because of the fact that we have so much history being made. We have a big race for mayor. We have a big race for sheriff. The city council races are, many of them, up for grabs still. So the entire city leadership in New Orleans has the chance to change as these polls begin to close and the votes start coming in at 8 o'clock. We got about 20 minutes to go. I was just talking with our analysts here who are in the studio with me, Clancy Dubos, Dr. Silas Lee. We're at the finish line tonight. 20 minutes to go until those polls
some of the
close.
Candidates, it's the finish line. For others, there'll be a runoff. We'll see.
Yes, it's exciting. But one thing that we haven't really touched on yet was the role that Mayor LaToya Cantrell is playing in these campaigns. How much of an impact do you think LaToya Cantrell is having, and how big of a factor is she, do you think, Clancy?
To some extent, she's having an enormous impact. And that is always true at the end of a mayor's second term, because when a mayor runs for re-election, it's a referendum on that mayor, and the voters get to say, do we keep that mayor or don't keep that mayor? New Orleans, historical little footnote here, New Orleans, under the present charter, has never failed to re-elect an incumbent mayor. Every mayor has been guaranteed politically, not legally, but the history tells us that every mayor since 1954 has been re-elected to a second term, including some that were controversial, Ray Nagin and LaToya Cantrell. But when that mayor's term is over, that mayor is unofficially on the ballot in that voters by then, even for mayors who were good, who got high ratings and who are judged well by history, but at the time of their successor's election, voters are looking for somebody different. Not necessarily because they dislike that mayor, but they just want to change. And in this election, they are tired of the present mayor and they want somebody very different. And I call it the pendulum effect. And you never know which axis it's going to be on. It can be a racial pendulum where we had black mayors for a while, and then the city was ready for a white mayor like Mitch Landrieu. Sometimes it's the gender axis, where after so many male mayors, 8 years ago, the city was ready for a female mayor. The two candidates in the runoff were both female.
Yes.
So this time it's somebody who is kind of like it was when Mitch Landrieu ran after 4 years under Nagin of sort of non-function. We've now had 4 years of dysfunction. They're looking for a mayor who they feel will be somebody who gets the city working again, functioning again, not just at an average level, but at a high level. And so in that way, without her even wanting to, she's been an impact on this race.
Yes.
Silas?
Yeah, she became the measuring stick by which candidates and voters measure other candidates. And I reflect on the time. 21 years ago, she was a student in my class at Xavier.
Wow.
8 years ago, I was doing her polls to get elected mayor. Then 4 years ago, to get reelected. Now she's on her way out, also facing an indictment and a trial. So her legacy is behind the minds and the hearts of many voters. What she has done, the good she's done, it's been overshadowed by these other challenges, but that is her legacy right now. And the chapter is not finished yet, because we could have a trial. We have to see if there's a verdict from that trial and what happens. So this chapter is nowhere near finished, even after she leaves office.
Yeah, she will not go to trial before she leaves office. The new mayor will take office, whether that mayor is chosen tonight or on November 15th. The new mayor takes office on Monday, January 12th at noon. But she will stand trial if she goes to trial after that at some point. But the fact that she was indicted, I think, also hurt Oliver Thomas, because Oliver Thomas, pleaded guilty to a bribery charge in federal court, resigned immediately. He did what I thought was the right thing to do. He didn't try to drag it out. He said, I'm so sorry, I messed up, pleaded guilty, resigned, accepted the court's verdict, came out of jail not quite 3 years later, and did a 15-year, well, to this point 15-year, but a 12-year redemption tour.
Yes.
He did not come out and run for office right away. He spent 12 years doing volunteer work, working in the communities, worked at Covenant House, gave speeches about, substance abuse and gambling addiction and, making good choices, and redeemed himself. And 4 years ago, when he ran for the city council from District E, he was elected over an incumbent. And it wasn't really a rejection of Cindy Nguyen. It was more like a positive vote for Oliver Thomas. And now he wants to run for mayor. But when the mayor gets indicted 2 months before the primary, it just reminds everybody of the controversy associated with federal charges. And I think that hurt Oliver Thomas.
But the other factor is 2007 was his time.
Yeah. Yes.
And that is when he got in trouble.
He was the mayor in waiting.
He was in waiting.
That's
he
right.
really was.
And the indictment came down, he had to resign, and that interrupted his step. But in 1994, I was the poster for Marion Barry. After he got out of prison, he did something similar in terms of redemption, rehabilitating his image and credibility with voters, got reelected. Same with Oliver, got reelected, just that he had this interruption. And like you said, with LaToya in the background in the minds of many voters, that impacted. Don't forget District E. We have to see how he fares in District E tonight.
That's right.
That's true. And, you know, those questions are large ones because of the fact that, you know, she is where she is, and she has been, you know, mired in controversy over the last year. It's
last
almost
4 years, really.
Yeah, and it has overshadowed so much of the governing of the city. And I think, you know, as you both mentioned, this may be a referendum on that tonight to some degree.
The fact that she presided over a substantial reduction in crime, that she appointed a police chief that everybody thinks is wonderful, and the interim chief, most people think that Michelle Woodfork was terrific. 2 police chiefs that she appointed get very high ratings by voters, and yet she gets none of the credit for that because of all the other stuff, the controversies that she, and it's all self-inflicted though. It is truly a self-inflicted.
And let's not forget 2020, COVID. Navigating COVID, keeping the city out of
that
bankruptcy.
was her high point of her career.
Yes, that helped her get reelected.
Yes.
And navigating it, keeping the city out of bankruptcy compared to many other municipalities that had to file bankruptcy, and the fact that we did not have a high death rate from COVID as in many other communities.
And she rightly gets the credit for that.
She gets the credit for that. And after that, about a year or two later, that's when the wheels started to wobble and come off.
Yeah, and
Hurricane Ida, I think, was a tipping point.
Yeah, it was.
The garbage didn't get picked up, the traffic lights stopped, you know, traffic signs, and they just never did recover from Hurricane Ida.
I mean, we managed, as you just mentioned, for her to keep the city afloat during COVID, and now here we are, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, she's telling the city council we have a $100 million budget hole and we need to raise taxes, both property taxes, both sales taxes, you know, and now we're in financial questionable territory. So that is quite a change in her, you know, last term. Tonight, what are we expecting to see when we see those polls close and we see the big slug of numbers that usually comes in around 8 o'clock? What do you guys think?
Well, I'm not sure we're going to see a big slate of numbers because it's possible, but historically, because New Orleans has so many mail ballots that have to be counted by hand, they do them by machine, but they verify them by hand. We may not get the early vote because the early vote and the mail-in ballots, I think, all come in together, don't they? So they may come in later.
Okay.
The other parishes, they tend to come in quickly because other parishes don't have 262,000 registered voters, most of them. So that plays a big factor in it.
Okay.
We have to wait and see where the votes are coming from because let's say Algiers, that's a little bit longer. New Orleans East, a little bit longer.
Yes.
So Uptown, District B, those will come in early, and it'll be
Gentilly,
a good
Lakefront. Yeah, they'll come in earlier.
It's all about getting over that river. Always.
And over the industrial canal.
Yeah, something about that every time.
That's this thing about water.
Yeah.
Another thing we can do is establish some benchmarks. 25% of the vote in, 33% of the vote in. Then with 50 and 70% come in, let's see how that compares to the earlier percentages. And those are going to be some key benchmarks to see what trends are reflected in those benchmarks early.
Well, I have to tell you, as somebody who loves politics, I'm the luckiest woman in this city right now because I'm sitting here next to the experts. We have Ron Fauché waiting in the wings to come talk to us too about all the excitement that we can expect tonight as those polls close in about 10 minutes. And we'll continue with our Elections on 4 coverage after this short break. Welcome back, everyone. You're joining us for our Elections on 4 coverage. We have about 7 minutes until the polls close in New Orleans, in Jefferson Parish, St. Tammany, and all the other areas that may be having elections tonight. It is an exciting night and a historic one, especially for those people in Orleans Parish and New Orleans. We want to go to Amelia Strahan. She's joining us live at a polling location as we have about 7 minutes left until those polls close. Amelia, I know you're keeping tabs on the council races tonight, but how are things where you are? Anybody still trickling in out there?
Yeah, we are at the Leah Chase School, and I thought we had seen our last voter. Things were pretty quiet for like about the past 15 minutes, and then just a few minutes ago we saw a man and his child walk in, so it does look like people are taking advantage of the last few minutes. But like you said, just 7 minutes left now. Now, the traffic was much thicker whenever we got here a couple of hours ago, but we may have seen the last voter for the night. We'll have to see. We've been asking the voters, kind of what are some of the issues that are bringing you out tonight? And many of them have said they'd like to see improvements to infrastructure. They're concerned about safety. So we will know in the next few minutes how this race pans out.
Thank you so much, Amelia. Can't wait to hear how the races unfold tonight. And we now have Ron Fauché joining us in the studio with our esteemed panel of analysts and pollsters. You are one of the best in the state. So talk about tonight what you're going to be looking for first as we start to get those first returns in, 6 minutes.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that a lot of people will be looking at is voter turnout. New Orleans had very low turnout in the last 2 mayor's elections and the governor's election. The benchmark I'm looking at is whether it can hit 40%, because in recent elections it's been in the 20s and 30s. That would take 105,000 votes. And as we've said, the big thing is whether Helena Moreno wins tonight or whether she's in the runoff with one of the other candidates. And there's a million reasons to justify why she could and why she couldn't. So we'll have to wait and see. Also, you've got 2 incumbents, the clerk of court and the sheriff, who are in trouble. And it's possible that both of them could lose. So these are some of the, I think, bigger issues to watch.
City council races as well. We haven't really touched on those yet, but, a change in leadership in most of those seats. Leslie Harris is the only one who's, already reelected, not facing any challengers. So there could be some changes in city council as well, right?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you've got an at-large seat, for instance, that's open. You have an at-large incumbent, J.P. Burrell, who's likely to win tonight. And you also have Oliver Thomas's open seat in District E, Joe Giarruso's open seat in District A. So there will be some fresh blood on the council, no matter who wins.
And of course, fresh blood in the mayor's office as well, which is going to be a significant change. And I know that really is the race that so many people are keeping their eye on tonight. Clancy, what are you thinking as we get closer to those polls closing in 4 minutes now?
Well, I can't wait till we start getting our precincts in and we get a picture of how things look. Because we have certain expectations of things that might happen or could possibly happen, and it'll be fun to see and interesting to see, because this is, and when you say fresh blood, politics in New Orleans is a blood sport in some ways, and it's a participatory spectator sport, because voters get to choose, but they're also involved, but voters love to sit back and watch it. But ultimately, it's voters who will be, ultimately they're the referees here. In this thing.
Absolutely. Dr. Lee, quickly, what are you looking for as soon as we get those first numbers in?
Where they come from.
Okay.
And some indicators as the night progresses, how much that support will change, if it's going to be severe flip-flops or if it will be very steady, where we identify a particular person who maintains a lead, and by how much.
On that note, we're going to take a short break and continue our Elections on 4 coverage right after this.
Live from WWL Louisiana, this is an Elections on 4 special.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Moore, and thanks so much for joining us for our Elections on 4 coverage. It's an exciting night in Orleans Parish, Jefferson, and of course, St. Tammany Parish, electing a new mayor there. But here in New Orleans, a historic election for the city's next mayor, as we have a wide open field. City council races also up for grabs, and of course, the Orleans Sheriff and the Orleans Criminal Clerk of Court all up for re-election tonight. Now, we have some great coverage for you. We've got you covered on all angles and from all of the top headquarters and where they're going to be celebrating tonight. And of course, I am here in the studio with our esteemed panel of analysts and pollsters. Let's start with you, Ron Fauché. You know, one of our political pollsters, has conducted our poll and done a fantastic job over the years. Dr. Silas Lee, who is also a political pollster and a professor at Xavier University. Thanks so much for being with us. And Clancy Dubose, WWL's political analyst, here with me tonight. These three are some of the heavyweights in politics, not only in New Orleans, but in the state of Louisiana. So I'm so lucky to be sitting up here with you guys as we move through our coverage beginning right now, as those polls are now closed. You know, we all took a look at the early voting numbers. We've been able to see those for a little while now. What can we conclude based on those numbers? What do you guys think those numbers are going to tell us, Clancy?
One of the things that I think a lot of the media missed when they looked at the black and white numbers and focused on those, they missed what to me was the biggest, most important number, and that was the early vote by women voters. Women, well, let me start with black and white. Black voters traditionally turn out in slightly larger proportions than their registration in early voting, and it's largely elderly, but older, 50 and older black voters. White voters vote about where they normally vote or a little bit higher. That happened again this time. Nothing different dramatically from what we see in what we have seen in the last 3 or 4 election cycles. What was different this time, and what is dramatic in my opinion, women voters are already the majority in Orleans Parish. They are 56% of the registered voters in New Orleans. But in the early vote, they were 62% of the votes cast. And I think that bodes well for Helena Moreno, because her biggest cohort of voters, and she does well across race and gender and age categories, but her biggest cohort is women voters in terms of where the strength of her support is. But that was the early vote. We've had another week of voting, another 2 weeks of voting since and campaigning since early voting began. So we'll see if anything changed that. And it will be interesting to see what it looks like right before we get the early returns. And we have over 40,000 votes between in-person early voting and mail-in ballots. It'll be interesting to see if those, because these are people who made up their minds 2 weeks out, 10 days to 2 weeks out, as opposed to people who watched everything in the last 10 days and saw the barrage of attack commercials.
I was just going to say, that's when those attack ads really started firing up. So, Silas, what do you think we can glean from all of that? And how much, I guess, we won't be able to tell until we get the actual poll results how effective those attack ads were.
Well, we can talk about that in social media. However, with reference to early vote, it has changed the strategy of candidates. They used to wait 2 weeks before the election, 7 days, to engage in serious attacks and have the surprises before. Now, with early vote, you have to be more strategic. You have to engage in retail politics significantly earlier, which means you have to spend money earlier. And as Clancy was saying, women are the chief executive officers of the household. Financial decisions, other decisions impacting the family and communities, women are the major influencers. So that is why women on a daily basis are engaging in an early vote that's unofficial when they live and navigate the city. And that is also contributing why you see this high interest and turnout with women. I think of early vote as the appetizer.
The appetizer.
And you can have a lot of appetizers and you can still eat the main course. And that's what you see here.
Well, Ron, what do you think this appetizer is going to tell us about the entree tonight?
Well, a few things, and one thing I would add to what Silas said is, even though campaign reform supporters think there's too much money in politics, and there is too much money in politics. So many of these people went and supported legislation to have early voting, and early voting increases the cost of campaigns for the reason Silas said. You don't just vote on election day, you're voting for 2 weeks. So the campaigns have to have get out the vote, more advertising earlier, and the whole thing. So it does increase the cost of voting. I think what the numbers showed is that we're going to have a higher turnout than we had in the last few elections. Probably it's showing twice as much in some cases as recent elections. Although the presidential race had twice as many early voters in Orleans as we had this time.
Oh, wow.
So, but that was a big race. You
Yes.
know, that had almost 60% turnout. So we'll have to see. But I also think people make a little bit too much of early voting and the impact it'll have on the election.
Okay, you
You
think
know,
there's...
we don't really know who these people are voting for. And we can look at the demographics. And what Clancy said is true about women voters, and what Silas said is true about the additional numbers. But we don't really know who these people voted for.
Do you think that the fact that we do have that early voting factor, is that one of the reasons that we heard that Royce's decision in January handicapped him coming into, where we were 6 months ago when he decided that he was going to run? Was that a handicap for him, do you guys
He
think?
actually only decided at late June, beginning of July.
Yeah, less than 6 months,
So it's only
yeah.
been about three and a half months that he decided to run.
In terms of fundraising,
July, August, September, and half of October. 3.5, not even half of October.
Well, but he determined when he got in the race.
Right.
I mean, nothing was keeping him.
He got out for 6 months. He got out in late December.
Yes. And I would also say, too, he ultimately raised a lot of money.
He did.
And he had to do it quickly, right?
And he did it quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe it won't. I guess we'll have to wait and see, and whether or not that's going to play a role. You all have said that the location for our first poll results coming in is going to be the biggest indicator of how things are going for these different candidates. What are we looking at in terms of different parts of the city that you all are going to be keeping a close eye on tonight? Clancy?
I think we're going to look, unfortunately, the areas that we want to look at the most closely are going to be the ones that come in last. Algiers and East New Orleans.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, and now most of the polling showed, and Silas, I don't know if you agree or not, but Helena Moreno's best council district is Council District A. And I think it was that by a pretty significant margin. So if Council District A is coming in heavy at the beginning, it may be exaggerating her ultimate vote. So we'll have to watch and see that.
Is that the fact that there isn't an incumbent in A, is that going to help, boost turnout in that area?
You have no incumbent council member.
A is very diverse too, because they have changed the boundaries. Also with Council District A, it's a very competitive district. It has the second highest number of new residents post-Katrina compared to the East Bank of District C. And that's going to be interesting, the re-election of Freddie King, and if he is able to avoid a runoff, and also where those votes come from in reference to District A, New Orleans East, and District C, where at in District C? Because you really have two cities in one district, East Bank and West Bank.
Interesting.
And the other thing about District A is it has the highest percentage of Republicans of any of the 5 council districts. So if Frank Janusa, who's the Republican candidate, is going to get more votes than people have predicted, which is certainly possible, we would know from District A.
Okay, well, we're going to keep close eye on that, and we're going to continue to talk about what we can expect as we move through this historic night here with our Elections on 4 coverage continuing right after this. Welcome back, everyone. You are tuning in to our Elections on 4 coverage on this historic night, especially in the city of New Orleans and New Orleans Parish, where some major leadership positions are up for a primary election tonight. We're keeping tabs on those very closely, and we have some of our best crews out at some of the most hotly contested races all around town, and we want to begin tonight with Sharice Gibson and Deb Bartolotta. They are keeping tabs on the Helena Moreno campaign. Joining us now with the latest on what's happening out there. You know, last time we came to you all, they were still setting up, things were still quiet. How's it going now?
Yes.
Not so quiet anymore.
No, not so quiet at all. Actually, there is a concert that was held for Helena yesterday at Tipitina's that's airing right now behind us on stage. The room is starting to fill up with people. So far, we haven't seen any of her, as far as people who promoted her. People who supported her are here, but we see mostly social media personalities, some families, some friends, and right now we're still waiting to see if there is anyone else who is currently in office that's going to arrive at this campaign headquarters.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of heads of community organizations, things like that, who are coming, grabbing some food, grabbing some drinks, starting to settle in. We, as you said, have not seen any elected officials yet, but we know that they'll likely be here. She's picked up some pretty key endorsements in the past few weeks, including several council members and members of the state legislature.
Yeah, when you talk about endorsements, Helena Moreno has gotten endorsements from the likes of Bill Bollinger, Bollinger, a huge Republican endorsement, as well as some Democratic endorsements from Cedric Richmond and several others. And I have to say, when you talk about her political experience, I just want to do a quick rundown here. You go all the way back to 2001 when she arrived in the city of New Orleans as a reporter, and then after Hurricane Katrina, she decided to enter that foray into public office, losing the first time against Bill Jefferson, but ultimately winning a state rep seat and then going on to city council at large, where she easily held on as council president there.
Yeah, she's done so much in that role as well. She said that the reason she entered public office was because Hurricane Katrina changed her life, as it did with many, many others, and she sees that as a way to serve her community as through public service.
Yeah, in our WWL Louisiana mayoral debate that we had just a couple of weeks ago, we talked about some of the issues that matter most to our viewers, and that is thanks to our viewers doing a poll. A lot of people talking about infrastructure. That's one of the main key issues they wanted to focus on. And she also talked about accountability and transparency, and we can always talk about crime and public safety. That's a #1 topic, and one of the things we hope to talk to her tonight about. I know that all of her supporters are right now hoping that she can cause an upset by getting more votes, more than 50% of the vote, hoping to not go into a runoff. We've already had one of her supporters walk up saying that they hope that this is one and done.
Yeah, certainly. We know that she has talked a lot about her first 100 days, going back to some of the things you spoke about. How she said that she would like a Super Bowl level of communication and collaboration, and to get the city services running as they should. So we'll see tonight if she'll have the opportunity to do that, or if we have to wait 4 more weeks to find out who will.
Yes. All right. So we're going to send things back to the studio. It's getting even more packed, even more loud. There is there are two DJs set up, Katie, here, as well as what's happening on the screen. So it's going to get a bit louder, but we're going to make sure that we got you all covered.
All right. That sounds great. Thanks so much, ladies. We appreciate that update from the Helena Moreno camp. We want to go out to the Oliver Thomas party next, and we have Brandon Walker, Brianna Boudreaux standing by there. You know, all of these places where we checked in with you all an hour ago, things were slowed moving, kind of everybody's setting up out there. So is there a crowd gathering for Oliver Thomas?
Yeah, well, Katie, the crowd is beginning to gather for Councilman Thomas at the moment. Not quite as crowded as what you saw there from Devin and Sharice, but the room is beginning to get packed here. People are beginning to file in and grab a seat, waiting for Councilman Thomas to get in. We can actually take a pan of the room right now and see for yourself here at Maison Blanche, the event venue, as I said, not the department store, but of course we know where the name comes from. Team Thomas says that they are confident that they will do well tonight. They are confident. They say that they will be able to push Helena Moreno into a runoff. They also say that they are confident that they will edge out Royce Duplessis.
And that confidence is something both you and I witnessed today when we were out and about. I know you were speaking to some of those supporters in Algiers. I was doing the same uptown, and just hearing from them, a lot of them said, you know, he's focusing on making more transparency a thing as far as if he were to be chosen as mayor. He said that that was something that he expected, to take place with his campaign, because he said, frankly, a lot of people have mistrust when it comes to the government. And a lot of those supporters, I think for both of us, reflected that and said, we feel that he has tangible ways that he has laid out that if elected mayor would be able to make some of those changes right away. We talked about some of those that he has listed on his website. If you're interested in learning more, the 311 tracking system.
Right.
So if there's a problem, something you see wrong with the government, there's a tangible way for you to see that problem once it is addressed, see where it is as it is being dealt with, and kind of seeing what the resolution is. It's a way that you can actually track it. Another way was having different city hall locations so that there are satellite places where people can go and deal with real issues rather than having to go to one location that for some may not be accessible.
And that includes here in New Orleans East, District E, which is Councilman Thomas's district on the city council. New Orleans East has been a major part of his campaign, a major part of his proposal if ultimately elected mayor, among other things, in figuring out what industry should be in New Orleans, in Louisiana. Well, it is tourism. Oliver Thomas saying that we need to lean into that even more so than what we do, saying that we already do quite well, but it's time to use communities, for instance, such as New Orleans East, introduce ecotourism, for instance, and those are plans that he says that he would implement if elected.
Yeah, so the room right now, people talking amongst themselves, people talking with one another, looking at their phones, checking, of course, those polling numbers. And we are going to stay here all night long to give you this reaction from the group here. Also going to hear from Oliver Thomas once he does arrive. You see the podium set up here behind us, and we'll keep you updated on all things the election here from the headquarters with Oliver Thomas.
No, so things back to you, Katie.
All right, thanks so much, Brandon and Brianna. And this is a very exciting night for the voters in Orleans Parish and beyond. There are elections in St. Tammany Parish for mayor as well. And there's a small election in Jefferson Parish in some parts of Jefferson Parish too. So we're going to be keeping tabs on all of those races. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, we're actually starting to get some numbers trickling in. So we're going to get to those in just a moment. But we do first want to go out to Mike McDaniel and Lily Cummings. They are standing by at the campaign party for Royce Duplessis. I'm guessing the candidate is not there yet. They usually don't come out until we get a better idea on what's going to happen with the night. But is a crowd starting to gather where you guys are?
Yeah, so we are at the New Orleans Lakefront Airport. Beautiful venue here, Mike. And the crowd is filling up. The room is filling up, rather. We are seeing people trickle in. Food is now being served. The DJ, he's got a killer playlist that he's been playing all night long. So we are seeing a lot of activity. The doors opened just at 8 o'clock as those polls closed. So we're starting to see a lot of energy that these folks are bringing to the room now.
Yeah, the folks here will tell you they're rolling with Royce. That became part of his campaign slogan here late in the game. And of course, it's on some of the campaign buttons as well as the stickers that are at the front door, as well as some campaign signs. She was talking about that playlist. We were dancing a little bit earlier. We have not stopped tapping our feet the entire time. Now, Royce actually had a long list of things to do today. His schedule was packed. He, of course, started, he was at PJ's Coffee this morning. He did a second line to the polls. Then he went out to the different areas across the city and started waving signs. He went to a church service. Then he went back out to do some more sign waving. So it's been nonstop on the go for him pretty much all day. He's not here yet. We were actually told that he was still waving signs up until the polls closed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for all the candidates today, I don't even know what time they woke up this morning, but I know as I went into work to anchor the morning news, you saw people out setting out signs along the neutral grounds. So it has been a long day for everyone, and of course it's only going to get longer as we wait on those results to trickle in. Now, one thing that I did want to point out that I think is so interesting about Royce is that we've seen him serve in the House of Representatives for the state of Louisiana. Obviously now he is a state senator for District 5, but he has yet to serve a full term in any office he's had. And some may say that that points to a sign of ambition, to always seek the next thing.
I know, because he saw an opportunity for the House of Representatives. He went after that during a special election.
Right.
He won the full term, but he didn't serve it all because he saw another opportunity, that being in the Senate. He did a special election there. Then he wound up winning that full term. Hasn't served the full term yet because now he's running for mayor. So yeah, a lot of political ambition from him. He's got the wherewithal to know what he's doing, especially in the legislature. He's championed so many pieces of legislation, everything from criminal justice reform to public health, a lot of things dealing with youth, specifically youth violence, and that's been one of the things he's really campaigned hard on during this campaign, because he wants to be able to blend his hometown roots and his political experience into this mayoral race.
And he is known for being able to reach across the aisle and work with Republicans and Democrats there at the state capitol in Baton Rouge. But I know that this session in particular, he wasn't as successful. He put forward 8 pieces of legislation. None of them were quite successful. A lot of those having to do with rising costs of homeowners insurance. You saw sort of some compromise come out of some of those bills, but he wasn't completely successful in getting any of them passed in their initial form.
And he's really had to hit on a lot of those hard-hitting, hot-button issues that a lot of folks across New Orleans are having to deal with, because that's what has really catapulted these 3 frontrunners in this race. They're constantly out there talking about these issues. These are the things that voters want to hear about. And here we are tonight. Royce Duplessis originally was not going to be in this race, but now we know he has the ability to run a race, and pretty well, considering he came into this months after the fact.
Right,
July 1st.
Right, exactly. Making that official announcement on July 1st, and that was one of the things he said coming into this, was that he felt like he heard from the voters, the people of New Orleans, saying that they wanted another choice, and another campaign slogan that they're using tonight, Royce is the choice. So we will see tonight if that turns out to be the case.
Yeah, you can see behind us the stage is set. It's all lit up. Of course, folks just they're at the buffet right now. That's kind of what we're doing. We got gumbo off to the side. We got a penne, shrimp, seafood pasta off to the side. So there's a lot going on. The bars are open, so people are still filing in the doors behind us here at the terminal at the airport here on the lakefront.
Look, Mike has already checked out the buffet. I have yet to go over there and sneak a peek, but I will head that way.
She's trying to tell on me already. She's been at the bar. That's what it is.
Hey now.
Election night secrets. Getting the tea spilled over at the Royce campaign, the Royce Duplessis campaign by you guys. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for that update. We are starting to get the first set of numbers coming in for the New Orleans mayoral election. I have 3 analysts with me here in the studio who are anxiously awaiting a chance to talk about these initial set of numbers. So when you all saw the numbers that just popped up on the screen here a little bit ago, what were your initial thoughts? We can take a look at these maps that Clancy Dubose is pulling up for us. But so Clancy, what are we taking away from this? Right now, 65% for Helena Moreno. It's going to change.
These are precincts mostly from Mid-City and the Lakefront, which are largely white precincts.
Okay.
And so it's not surprising that Helena Moreno has this huge lead. It's not going to end up that high. Frankly, I do think at this point, based upon what we saw from early voting results, Helena Moreno getting 55% of the early vote, that's with 40,000 votes counted already. So that's like, if you guys took a poll of 40,000 voters in New Orleans and it was citywide, what would you say? What would the margin of error be? About a percent, maybe less?
Yeah, that would be it.
So, I mean, I'm ready to call the race for Moreno at this point. I don't know what the exact percentage will be, but she's going to win it outright tonight.
You think so?
I do.
All
I do.
right.
I really think so. Not 65%, but more like somewhere right above or right below 55%.
Yeah,
That's a big prediction.
I think one thing we definitely know is she's running first, and she's going to run first by a wide margin.
Okay.
I agree with Clancy. It's probably likely she takes it, but let's look at more numbers. But
let's look at the trends.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one set of numbers here showing 65, early vote was at 55. Let's see what happens at 33%, 50%,
exactly.
And
65%.
this is only about 2 or 3 precincts. So these
Okay.
numbers don't tell us anything.
Yeah.
Other than in those precincts, she's doing what she should do. And the others are doing about what we would expect. Duplessis second, Oliver Thomas third, Janusa getting 6.5%. But again, these are majority white precincts where you would expect to see some Republican vote. Citywide, we'll see what he gets after, after that.
I don't think anybody has predicted necessarily that he's going to come out first in this race, but Janusa could play a role in how this shakes out tonight, right? And
taking
why
some
is
votes
that?
away because he is the lone Republican. And there's so many other candidates running, but he was able to buy some last minute ad time. He also had an ad featuring Royce and Oliver saying that they would hire him to look at the finances, which is a first I've seen in terms.
It's an interesting tactic. I don't think I've ever seen somebody campaign with other people running.
Right.
Very
Well, that was a play for his votes in the runoff in case there is a runoff.
That he won't be in.
Yeah, that's interesting. What else can we take away from this, Ron? What do you think?
Well, one thing going back to the Janusib thing is if Helena Moreno is very close to winning in the first primary, but not quite there, and he has a bigger vote than expected, 6, 7, 8, 10%, which is not impossible, probably more than he'll get, but not impossible, then a lot of people will attribute that to him being in the race. But there's a but to that.
Okay.
And the but is that every survey I did showed that Moreno never exceeded 80% of the white vote. In the primary, she was in the 70s. In the runoff, she was about 80, maybe 81, 82 at the most. So there was always at least 18 to 20% of white voters who had a resistance to voting for Moreno. So it's very possible Janus's vote will be coming from those voters. But that doesn't, but she was getting a majority of the vote when she was getting 82%, you see?
Yes.
So it doesn't necessarily mean he pulls her down.
Gotcha. But the numbers, for Moreno are looking very good.
Looking good.
At-large race.
Yes.
That's going to be interesting. Will it win it outright?
That's a great question.
Because we have Delisha Boyd in it too. So let's see what impact the controversies surrounding her had. And we have to talk about later on the outcome in terms of the winners and the losers in terms of those who endorse various candidates tonight.
Yeah,
right now, with just a few precincts reporting, Willard's getting 59.5% of the vote. Again, that's just a few precincts that we at WWL have gathered because we've got people that we sent out to sort of the mega precincts out there. It remains to be seen. I don't have a tally on what the results were in the at-large, council at-large Division 1 race, which is Matt Willard, Matt Hill, and Delisha Boyd. But if I could see what the early voting totals were, we could tell a lot.
Yeah, it's really going to be interesting. There's obviously been a lot of controversy, in the last couple of weeks involving Delisha Boyd and questions about her campaign spending. That has to play a role here.
Has to play a role, and it's not only the controversy, but how you respond, and if you can negate and neutralize it from having any impact on you. That was a major challenge.
Yeah, and the numbers right now are not looking good. But again, we are very early in this process. The night is young for sure, especially as we know Orleans Parish tends to make this a long night. So we'll have to see if that actually holds true this time. And you all are going to continue to be here with us throughout. So I'm excited about this. What else can we take away from these numbers so early on? There are key factors that you guys have already talked about, which is race among voters, gender is going to play a role here. What else are you looking at?
Well, the fact that she put together a multiracial, multi-demographic coalition. Royce was doing the same thing, and so was Oliver. And we have to see how this ultimately plays out, especially in Districts E as well as in District C, and how the East Bank and the West Bank voted, as well as District D. So those are some key indicators. District B, due to the fact that Leslie Harris was reelected without opposition, turnout as well as where the vote went.
Yeah, if it's low, since they didn't really have anyone to vote for.
Right.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Well, it's so great to be able to sit here with the three of you tonight to get just the greatest analysts, I would say, out there. And so we're going to continue to follow what's happening with the elections as those numbers continue to trickle in and talk to our amazing analysts. Check out all the campaign headquarters as we move throughout the night. But right now we want to take a short break. back, everybody. We're keeping tabs on a number of elections across the metro New Orleans area tonight. It is a historic and exciting night, especially in Orleans Parish, where the city will have a primary election tonight for the next mayor and, quite frankly, for the next leadership team of New Orleans. One of the hottest races tonight is the race for Orleans Parish Sheriff. We have an incumbent sheriff who has been mired in controversy in the last several months, and we have a challenger who's gained a lot of support. We want to go out to Winston Reed, who is standing by with incumbent Sheriff Susan Hudson, at least at her campaign party tonight. Winston, what's the mood like there?
Well, Katie, over the past hour, it's been a bit of a vibe shift, and I'm here at Twisted Waffles here in the French Quarter, and you hear the music behind me, so it's going to be a pretty upbeat vibe throughout the night, and people have been showing up. So about 50 people have showed up already here at the venue. It's 8:33 right now, and just looking at the polls and looking at the numbers, with under 1,300 total votes so far in the Orleans Parish Sheriff's race, Michelle Woodfork is in the lead. However, it's going to be a long night, not only for this race, but for many of these races. And behind me is the podium where, at some point tonight, incumbent Susan Hudson will take the stage. And listen, we've talked about the controversy surrounding her jail and her office. However, the incumbent Susan Hudson, she has campaigned on her achievements and on her being a change agent and being someone that can bring transformative justice to the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. She had an ad campaign recently touting the success on Mardi Gras Day in terms of not having any fatalities or any violent crimes take place on Mardi Gras Day. She credited her staff and her deputies for patrolling the streets and allowing Mardi Gras Day to be what she calls a success and a safe endeavor during that time. And she also campaigned on being a candidate that provides a living wage for her staff and her deputies, as well as providing resources for inmates, also prioritizing their mental and physical health. She talked about ensuring compliance with the federal consent decree that the Sheriff's Office is under, and also striving for a safer and more humane jail. We talked about the mental health wing and the phase 3 of the mental health wing in the past. It has faced some controversy as well due to delays and increasing cost of construction. And coming into this race, she does have a low approval rating from the voters. In a poll asking voters who they would vote for coming into this race, Susan Hudson only received 13% of the votes of those registered voters who were surveyed in that poll. And of course, the most publicized controversy surrounding her jail is the escape of those 10 inmates back in May. All of those inmates have been captured, with the most recent capture being Derrick Rose this week. But that's fresh on the voters' minds as we have entered this race and as the polls have now closed. So we're going to figure out how much that the controversy surrounding her jail has impacted the voters and their thoughts and opinions on this race. Do they still have faith in the incumbent, Susan Hudson? She beat out an incumbent back in 2021, Marlon Guzman, to take over. Will the voters stick with their incumbent this time? That's something that we're looking forward to figuring out, and this is going to be a very interesting race. Again, her opponent, Michelle Woodfork, is in the lead, and Edwin Shorty is behind, followed by the incumbent Susan Hudson. But you know, the music's loud here, and we're starting to see more people show up. And despite all that controversy, despite all of the noise surrounding her office, you know, she decided that she's going to enter this re-election campaign. She does have support. I've, you know, seen businesses in the area and, you know, the 7th Ward, and I've seen businesses still show support for Susan Hudson. So all is not lost despite the controversy. She does have some supporters still, despite all the headlines and all the issues within the jail. But we're going to figure out from the voters if they will stick by the incumbent in this race. And we'll have the latest when she shows up here at Twisted Waffles here in the French Quarter. Reporting live in the French Quarter, Winston Reed, WWL, Louisiana.
All right, thanks so much, Winston. We're going to check in with the Woodfork campaign in just a little bit, but we want to get over to Clancy Dubose and our team of analysts because we're ready to call some of these council races, the at-large races, right, Clancy?
We're ready to call both of the at-large races.
Okay.
JP Mayoral is running away with his re-election bid, no
Okay.
surprise, getting around 70% of the vote or more.
Wow.
And Matt Willard is also way out in front in his race, and he's going to win his race as well tonight. And those two will probably get more votes than anybody else on the ballot tonight. They're doing that well. Certainly Morel will.
Yeah, you
At
think?
this point, yes.
Okay. And we want to talk again a little bit about what numbers we're talking about here, because apparently there are not numbers from the Secretary of State coming in yet. These are numbers that we
This is based on
gathered.
early votes, but also it's based upon the votes that we're gathering, WWL,
Okay.
from around town. And it's just, you know, it's not a huge sample, but the numbers are so big, and they match what Ron's poll had showed and what we've seen in other polls, and it's just, you know, we can call it. You know, sometimes you can call it very early, and those are races that we can call right now.
Comfortably, all three of you
Yes.
are comfortable with that?
Yes.
Well, the margin.
The margin's
The margins
huge.
are so
Yeah,
big.
that's the key indicator. It's not
Yes.
51-49.
Okay. Right.
It's a much bigger margin that is difficult for anyone to overcome.
It's going to be interesting, as you mentioned, Silas, what will happen, what the fallout will be for supporting different candidates, like especially in that Willard
The
race.
winners and the losers.
Yes.
After later it gets, we'll see various political personalities and elected officials put a lot of political capital on various races. Former Congressman Cedric Richmond, as well as current Congressman Troy Carter, and they had diverse candidates that they were supporting,
Yes.
and they also had similar candidates that they were supporting. So in some cases, they might have one win, 2 losses, or 2 wins, 1 loss. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And of course, the district attorney, Jason Williams,
Jason,
Yes.
supported Helena Moreno strongly and
Yes.
early.
And he was the first major black elected official in town to come out for Helena Moreno, and he did it in a big way, repeatedly.
Yes, also Michelle
And they go back
Woodfork.
to their time on the council.
Right.
You know.
Michelle Woodfork, he's also largely supporting her for sheriff. So we'll see how that plays out as we go through the
Yes.
night.
And
But
Cedric Richmond played a big role. He introduced her at least one of her major fundraisers for Michelle Woodfork, whereas Troy Carter is endorsing Edwin Shorty. That's one of the ones where those two, you know,
And it's
allies
interesting
are supporting different people.
Yeah.
because Troy Carter took Cedric Richmond's seat in Congress with Cedric Richmond's support.
Yes.
So now they have sort of moved for separate endorsements. So we'll see who wins.
Well, they have reshuffled the deck in
Yeah,
some
sure.
ways. And now we have to see Cedric Richmond. He also was featured in many of the ads for Helena Moreno, as well as Troy Carter was featured in ads for Delisha Boyd,
Yes.
as well as Shorty. So it's interesting to see where this goes. And Troy was featured in ads for Helena Moreno.
Yeah, it's
so
interesting.
And
it's
he's
an
also
unusual
a big supporter of
marriage here.
Darren Lombard in that red-hot criminal court clerk's race.
yeah, which we never think that's going to be a hot race, but it is
Oh,
tonight.
It
Well, it
may
is.
have been the hottest one in terms of the
Yeah.
stuff going back and forth.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as we
Well,
continue.
those are some of the most interesting races.
Yeah.
The Willard Boyd council at large race I thought was extremely interesting because it was very close for a long time.
It was.
And both of them were legislators. Neither one of them really had a citywide base to speak of for themselves. And it was interesting. And the winner of it, you know, creates a new citywide official.
Yeah.
And at the very end of the race, Delisha Boyd's, you know, ran into some difficult issues,
Yes.
and it looks like that's probably going to be enough to
Yes.
elect Willard.
I
So.
think Willard also had some key issues in the legislature that he focused on, and that resonated citywide.
He ran a very smart campaign in terms of mail, TV, and other mediums that he used to connect with voters, identify his vision and his platform, it was a very strategic and focused campaign.
Yeah.
And he also went door to door in plenty of
He worked
places,
it,
and people
yes.
really appreciate that. From an at-large candidate, it's almost impossible to do that. Obviously, he couldn't knock on every door,
Right.
but he was very strategic and focused about where he went, and that made a difference to people.
Well, he's certainly somebody to watch for the future.
Yeah, I think he's
young
one of the
and-
rising stars in
and
city
now
politics
he's a citywide
at this
official.
point. Yeah.
Right.
Let's pull up that sheriff's map again, see if we can get those numbers real quick before we go out to Paul Murphy, who is with Michelle Woodfork tonight. But let's take another look at the numbers real quick, let you guys talk about this. What can we glean from this so far?
We have no results from East New Orleans. This is almost all from the Lakeview precincts and a little bit scattered around like Mid-City, Bywater. I think there's one from the Lower 9, Holy Cross neighborhood, almost nothing from Uptown. So it's really scattered and not a lot. A little bit of Gentilly in the lakefront, mostly Gentilly in the lakefront.
Are you all surprised to see Susan Hudson running third so far?
No.
No?
No, she was polling third.
Okay.
There's a 24-point gap there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have to see if that closes or if Michelle is able to extend that to the 50 points.
All right. Well,
What's
let's.
going to happen with Susan, too? Will she drop
That's a
in the
great question.
process?
When we get the results from the early vote, we get a dump of 40,000 votes from the early voting, early and absentee votes. That might tip it one way or the other.
Okay.
Right.
Well, let's see what the feeling is like over at the Woodfork headquarters. Paul Murphy joining us live there tonight. So we're seeing, some pretty big numbers initially coming in for Michelle Woodfork. Paul, has to be a bump in the mood there.
Well, I'll tell you, once we publish those last set of numbers showing Michelle Woodfork with a double-digit lead in this race, there was a loud clapping and a lot of hooting and hollering, and a lot of folks walking around here at this point with smiles on their face, and one of them is Constable Lambert Boissier, who was one of the political leaders that was one of the first to endorse Woodfork for sheriff. What's some of your thoughts?
Well, it was an easy election to endorse Sheriff Woodfork. I'm saying Sheriff Woodfork. But she has the ability to run the prison the way it should be. She's handled the police department, millions of dollars of budgets. She has all the experience needed, and I think she's going to make us a fine sheriff.
And one of your jobs is in law enforcement as well. How do you think she would do if the numbers stay the same and she prevails tonight?
Well, I think she'll be delighted to get it over in the first if that's possible. You have other people running, but if she pulls it off tonight, I'm sure she'll be delighted and she'll be ready to go to work as soon as she can. I understand there's going to be a lull between the election and actually taking office. So there'll be some transition period in there, and she'll be ready to deal with it.
And what do you think her appeal has been with voters?
Well, she's a likable person to begin with, and she has the experience and knowledge. She's already demonstrated how to manage the police department, and handling the prison's a tough job, but she has it in her gut. She's ready to deal with it. Her family history, going back to her uncle and her father being in law enforcement. So she's prepared for the job.
And right now she is just below what she would need on the first ballot. Do you think that enough votes will come in her way that she won't have to be in a runoff?
Well, we're all hoping that. I mean, you don't know until the votes are really tallied, but we hope that she pulls it off in the first. It would be a nice victory to get it done all at one time.
Thank you. Lambert Boissier, the first city constable here in New Orleans, one of the first politicians to endorse Michelle Woodfork. And a lot of clapping's going on here, a lot of happy people going on here at Sweet Lorraine's on St. Claude. Again, Michelle Woodfork at this point with the early returns with a double-digit lead over Edwin Shorty and the incumbent Susan Hudson. I have an interesting story to tell. I just walked outside not too long ago, and who do I see walking down St. Claude? Well, Chief Ann Kirkpatrick walking by herself. She was on her way to a gallery opening, and she didn't know that this was where Michelle Woodfork's headquarters was, and we sat there and talked for a while. And she said that she certainly is watching tonight's races pretty closely, particularly that mayor's race, because she's wondering if she'll be able to keep her job depending on who wins tonight in the mayor's office, again with the police chief serving at the pleasure of the mayor. And that's the scene here at Sweet Lorraine's in the St. Claude neighborhood. the Michelle Woodfork Watch Party. Back to you.
All right, we've got hooting and hollering going on, so we know this may be an early night. Guess we'll have to wait and see. We're going to continue your elections on 4 coverage in just a moment. So many big races up for grabs tonight as we continue our elections on 4 coverage. Thanks for being with us. I'm Katie Moore again. One of the biggest areas that we will see new leadership in is the City Council of New Orleans. Some hot races there, and we want to go out to Amelia Strahan. She's joining us live tonight with Cindy Nguyen, who is running in District E. She represented that district several years ago, then was defeated by Oliver Thomas. Now she's running again. Early numbers show her in the lead, Amelia.
Absolutely, and this is quite the party, Sydney. It definitely is. Excitement is definitely here. Very humble.
And you told me, she was saying this has been a really long election. She's worked so hard. Kind of tell me how you're feeling tonight as the polls are closed.
Extremely overwhelmed, like really, really grateful for an opportunity to get our district back on track. I've been ready. You know, my time was cut short, but you know, this is really exciting to get, like, it's always been about the people in District E, and it's going to continue to be about the people in District E.
And that's what you've talked about. You've said, like you said, it's all about the people. Kind of, what have you heard about from your constituents today? Why do you think your supporters are voting for you today?
What we've been hearing is like, listen, we love how you serve our district when you were as a council member. And you know what? I'm coming back stronger. 4 years of reflection and really thinking about all the strategies. So listen, I'm coming back strong more than anything, more than everything for our district. I love District E. My family lives here. I'm raising my grandkids here. So I'm going to work really hard to make sure that District E is back on track.
And what are some of the things that you have planned for New Orleans East in your district?
Several things. Lincoln Beach, we got to get it open, right? The former Six Flags site with Bayou Phoenix, we got to get it open to bring true economic development into the district. Quality of life, making sure from the low 9 to the east, Lake Catherine, Benicia now, and Fort Pike has improved their quality of life. And that it consists of infrastructure, lighting, street repair, street names, lighted properties, with so many things. I am up for the challenge. I'm up for the work. I am so excited.
All right, well, she's up for the challenge, and I think she actually has some dancing to get back to. She spent a lot of time on the dance floor out here. So I'm going to send it back to you guys, but quite the party out here. Thank you so much.
It is really getting going out there at Cindy Nguyen's campaign. We're glad she came out and spoke with us a little bit. Thanks so much, Amelia, for that update out there. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that race as we move throughout the evening. There are lots of different races that have been hotly contested, and City Council is just among them. We want to go to our analysts real quick because there are some races that we can call. Clancy Dubas signaling me over here, flagging me down, saying we have some City Council races that you are ready to call just based on these early numbers.
Freddie King as the incumbent, winning District C. And in District D, Eugene Green is coasting to re-election as well with 70.6. No surprise in either one of these, Green especially, because he did not have nearly the opposition that Freddie King did, although King was certainly a favorite anyway, but he's romping over, just trouncing his opposition in Algiers, which is where his main opponent is from. So that tells me that he's going to win his race. They're both coasting the re-election.
Yeah, right now, Freddie King, 67% of the votes, only 16% of precincts in. That's 11 of 69 precincts. Kelly Foster, 28% of the vote. Jackson Kimbrell and Elliott Barron, as you can see the numbers on your screen right now. Again, these are early numbers, but Clancy Dubas confident in the numbers that we're seeing and the percentages that we're seeing that you are able to call this race at this time for Freddie King III.
Yes.
All right. Another race that you just said that you could call as well was the other council race, Eugene Green. You said you're comfortable in calling that race as well?
Oh, absolutely.
District D.
No surprise at all.
No surprise there. Belden Batiste, of course, running against him. Leilani Hino has, run a couple of times as well for different city council seats. So both of them are not strangers to politics. But Eugene Green, so far, 11% of the vote in, 71%, and we're confident based on those numbers that we're able to call this.
Based on the numbers and where they're from, and when we look at the early and absentee votes, which is a huge amount of votes across the board, they're winning.
Okay. Are we seeing those numbers too? What were you going to say?
Yeah, I was also going to say, I don't know if we had announced it yet, but incumbent assessor Errol Williams has been reelected.
He's going to win easily as well,
Calling that one too. Man, these are coming in fast and furious. This is
these are ones we probably could have called at 8:01, but we wanted to see some results first.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. I mean, I know that at least the Freddie King race, there was a significant challenger in that race that actually got some pretty high-ranking endorsements from Alliance from Good Government, some places separate from Eugene Green.
And he's been on the right side of many policies affecting District C voters. District C is hard to manage because it is very diverse. You have a lot of newcomers in District C, impacted by gentrification as well as quality of life issues.
Yes.
French quarters.
Short-term rentals are a hot issue, and you've got 4 distinct constituencies. Each one feels overlooked, and so each one makes a lot of noise. You got Algiers because they're on the West Bank. You got the French Quarter. You've got the Marigny, and you've got parts of Bywater and New Marigny, as they say. And that in the 5th and 6th Ward. And looking at the early votes, Freddie King, we know the early voting was a significant number of votes. He got over 67% of the early votes, and that's what tells me that he's going to win this handily.
Okay.
That's a balancing act in terms of District C.
Yeah, it's very tough.
And it's the fact that he is able to garner that much support, given the number of issues impacting voters in that district, diverse issues, is significant.
Eugene Green also got 71%, like we saw in the returns today. He got 71% today, and he got 71% in the early voting, which came from all corners of his district.
Let me make a point about Eugene. Eugene Green sends out an email every week in reference to what is happening in
In
his
the district.
district.
He does.
And
Everywhere. I live in his
get it.
district,
don't
so
live
I
in
get
that
it,
district.
yeah.
And talking about voter communication, that contributes to why he is winning by such
And
a
he shows
margin.
up at the neighborhood association meetings as well.
Yeah, one thing we saw in polling throughout the campaign is that the city council rated pretty well citywide. And I think this is indicating that, because these district councilmen who incumbents who had opposition won, and as J.P. Morrell did, who was the one at-large council member.
It's interesting, especially
Yeah.
given the battles that have been going on between the
Yes.
city council and the mayor, and then you
Right.
have the mayor's
Well,
opinion,
well,
people's
the
opinion,
council
the mayor
has won that.
has won the
Yes.
won the
Yes.
public relations war there.
And I'm going to
Clancy?
make one more projection. It's
Okay.
going to be a runoff in District A between Holly Friedman and Amy McCarron, based
Wow.
upon the early voting, again, which is a lot of votes coming from every precinct in that district, as well as the
tight.
precincts we're getting today. Most of the precincts we're getting today are coming from District A, or the largest chunk of them are coming from District A. So I'm confident that Holly Friedman and Amy McCarron will run neck and neck, 1 and 2. One might be very slightly ahead of the other, but right now we have Holly Friedman at almost 37% of the vote and Amy McCarron at almost 36% of the vote. That could flip, but they're going to both be running first by a large margin, and so they will head to a runoff on November 15th in Council District A.
And we've been talking tonight a lot about District A because of how it might really impact the mayoral election. Can you guys talk about that again for people who are just joining us? What are we looking at in terms of District A, and what that's going to tell us about how this mayor's race is going to play out?
Well, District A is Helena Moreno's best council district. So it's an indication here. She needs to do very well in this
She's
district.
getting almost 80% in District A so far.
And that's beyond what she was polling. So that's very good for her.
Okay.
The other thing about District A, about a third or more of the voters arrived in that district, moved to that district after Katrina. And that's a district where we've seen some demographic shifts and some ideological shifts in terms of who they are supporting. But still, the fact that it's a very close race.
And the second place person in District A is Republican Frank Janusa with 10.5%.
Is that
Now, that
surprising to you
district
all?
has about 19% Republican registration.
Yeah, well,
so-
that's the highest Republican registration in the city.
In the city.
District
Yeah,
A.
so that's where he's going to run best.
Right.
And frankly, to make a serious impact citywide, he needed to get more than that in District A.
He did, yeah.
So,
So you don't think he's going to be a role?
Well,
play a role, be a factor.
We have to wait, but
Wait and see.
you know,
Okay.
but it's
it
looking
doesn't
more and more
look
like
it,
Helena
yeah.
Moreno is winning this tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
All
15%
right.
Really close.
in right now.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. 15%. That's significant.
Yeah.
How
And-
significant is
that's
that?
15% of the precincts, but when you add the early vote, that's probably over half of the vote.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's probably over half of the vote that's going to come in. So
And
I would
Moreno
call
has-
it right now for Helena to win it tonight. When you got that many, you got 50% or more of the votes in, and she's getting 34 to 37% in precincts that are overwhelmingly African American that I'm looking at. That's where she needs to go to make it. I think she's going to get at least 55% of the vote, 54, 57, somewhere in that range. She wins it in my book.
Think about
tonight.
where we started at too.
Yeah.
We started with the early vote in the 60-some% range. Now we got 15% in, 16% coming in. She is still holding on. Let's see what happens with the East comes in, as well as across the river.
Right.
And if that remains stable, grows, and what happens with the other candidates.
Right.
Oliver was hoping to eclipse Royce. Right now, we still have to wait and see.
That one's still up in the air. You think who comes in second?
Well, to see District E, what's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
If Oliver runs second in the East compared to third in the East, that is going to say a lot about how voters feel about him.
Do we have that map yet, Clancy? District E? Could we pull that one up and kind of see how things are going in the East? It could
Sure.
be
I'm
an
going to do that
indicator.
right now. I don't know if we have any votes yet from
In the East,
District
nothing?
E. Let's see. Yeah, we got maybe 2 or 3 precincts.
Okay.
And Oliver Thomas is first
Okay.
with 39, Duplessis second with almost 30, and Helena Moreno running third with 28.3.
Okay.
But that's not bad for her. That means she's getting a ton of votes outside of District E.
Gotcha.
And like
Okay.
we saw, she's getting 80+% of the vote in District A.
Yeah.
So, you know, and these districts are more or less equal in size, okay? So that's what adds up to 55%.
Okay. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out
Yes.
as more of those precincts and those districts come in, and we're going to continue to do our analysis. We'll have much more for you on the other side of this quick break. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a little after 9 o'clock, and we just wanted to reiterate tonight, Clancy Dubose, WWL political analyst, is calling this race for Helena Moreno to win it outright tonight.
Well, I did that 10 minutes ago, but
Yes.
yeah, I just want to repeat, yeah, we've called it for Helena.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is, you know, what we do. She's been ahead all night. She was way ahead in the early vote, and I said it, actually, I said it half an hour ago, that, you know, she's that far ahead, you know, we may as well call it. And
you're confident that Helena Moreno is going to be the next mayor of New Orleans?
As long as she's alive, yeah. that's how confident I am, okay?
As long as she's breathing,
if she's breathing, she's the mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
The margin again.
The margin.
So, okay, we started at early vote. Now we are at 20-some%. We saw what it was at 15%.
Right.
Look at the margins.
Right.
The closer we get to a third, then 50%.
Well, when you add the early vote, this is about 60% of the votes
It's a lot of
cast.
votes.
She wins. I mean,
I'll give you
she's
a
out there.
little tip for election night. This
Okay.
is totally unscientific. But when you see a candidate ahead who bounces up and down, who like goes down a point or two and then goes back up 2-3 points, down a point or two, 3 points. That's very healthy for them because it means regardless of what's happening, they're holding on.
Right.
And
the leading candidate doing
the
that.
leading candidate. So,
Okay.
you know, and in this particular case, she bounced from 53 to 56. Before she was at 55. Before she was at 54.
So it's consistent. It's been consistent.
Yes.
relatively
Now that's
throughout the night.
totally unscientific.
Totally unscientific. And these are the scientists.
Well, that's because
at
Fauché
Foley.
majored in foreign service, you know,
Right.
foreign studies. But, you know, I majored in history. I think it's very scientific.
Absolutely.
It's historic.
Well, I'm so lucky that we have the three of you here tonight and that we're able to make this projection that Helena Moreno will be the next mayor of the city of New Orleans. So definitely a historic night, and we just made some tonight. But we have another mayor's race that we want to check in on as we continue to move throughout the evening. Meg Ferris been standing by live in Slidell, where in St. Tammany Parish, this is one of the biggest cities. So Meg, how are things at the campaign headquarters where you're at right now? I know you've been bouncing around back and forth.
Yes, Katie. Well, we're at Mayor Bill Borchert's campaign headquarters now, where we're waiting for numbers. And this is a special mayoral election. So what happened was the current mayor was the at-large council, and he had the most votes in the last election. So he got moved up to mayor in January when the Mayor Cromer got selected to be in a position in Governor Landry's administration. So this is a special election. Whoever is elected tonight, whether it's the current police chief, Randy Fandel, or Mayor Bill Borchert, he will be the mayor until June 30th. But there'll be a special election in the spring that will elect the mayor for the next 4 years. And it may be the same mayor who is elected tonight. We'll see. Now, one of the issues was drainage, but one of the issues that became controversial in this election was land that Mayor Bill Borchert had bought, and whether or not dollars could be used, government dollars could be used for drainage. So we asked him about that just a little while ago. Mr. Mayor, one of the things you had brought up was drainage, and that's something that your opponent had brought up about the private land and drainage. Did you want to explain your position on that?
Well, the truth of the matter is that 9 years ago, I put together a plan. Have you ever been to San Antonio and seen the Riverwalk? It's a drainage project. It's a drainage project that started in the 20s, and now it's an economic engine for that community. Well, when I came back from San Antonio, I realized that in South Louisiana, we have canals, ditches, and bayous everywhere. And so I said, why can't we do that in Slidell? And we have 7 different drainage basins within our community that have issues. And one of the problems we have is in Slidell, our highest elevation over John Slidell Park is about 26 feet, and our lowest is over here by First Baptist Church and Spartan Drive, and it's about 6 feet. So we've only got about a 20-foot drop from one side of town to the other. And so the water has to have somewhere to accumulate. And so my thought was, as an engineer, let's widen these canals, let's reinforce them, let's put sidewalks on the side, make them pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, and also increase the storage capacity. So this Bayou Patasat project that we're talking about taking 4.5 million gallon capacity and increasing it to 40. And we've already got $15 million in federal funds committed to it, and we're excited about moving it forward. There's a house right around the corner. Miss Judy is actually here. She built a big, beautiful home, and I asked the 2 previous administrations to buy it when the land was vacant. Now it's going to be more difficult to get that project through there because of the big, beautiful home. We had 2 more pieces of property come up for sale. I asked Mayor Cromer to buy it for the city. He said, we're not in the real estate business. So I bought it. I bought it so that this project could continue. I knew going in that I couldn't profit from it. I knew going in that, in all honesty, I had intended to potentially donate it to the city, but the project stopped just short of it, and so it doesn't make sense to donate something that couldn't. And now I've since found out from our city attorney that since it's an immovable property, I can't even donate it to the city.
So it's not a conflict of interest?
No, it's never been a conflict of interest. It's never been illegal.
Okay, so there you hear from the current mayor. Now both of them are Republican, I should say, and also their campaign headquarters are just 5 blocks from each other. So we will be moving to Police Chief Randy Fandel's headquarters, just 5 blocks away, to hear what's going on over there. And we'll be back to you next time you come to Slidell. Katie, reporting live from Slidell, Meg Farris, WWL Louisiana.
Well, Meg, I think you're about to walk into a very happy place because WWL political analyst Clancy Dubose is ready to call the race for the police chief, Randy Fandel. So calling him as the winner tonight. I imagine it'll be a different situation when you get over there, Meg. We'll check in with you in just a few moments. But Clancy, what makes you call this?
Slidell has a history going back over 20 years of promoting police chiefs into the mayor's office. And Chief Fandel is going to be the 3rd police chief in the last 24 years to be elevated to the position of mayor. So it's not a surprise. He's got high marks as police chief. You know, Slidell is a city, like many cities, it doesn't have all the urban ills that, say, New Orleans and Baton Rouge and Shreveport have, but they're concerned about that. And having a police chief who makes people feel safe is about the best calling card you can have in politics in that part of St. Tammany Parish.
Also a citywide election.
And it's a romp.
So
I mean, he's leading 70+% of the vote. We probably could have called it, half an hour ago, but we were busy calling the mayor's race in New Orleans at that time.
You had something to add, Ron?
No, I was going to just say that even though New Orleans has had some very popular police chiefs, I don't recall any of them getting elected mayor. Going back to you,
at least 100 years it
Well, you bring up police chief. Yeah. Richard Pennington was encouraged to run for mayor due to the high favorabilities he had in polls. In fact, his favorabilities were slightly higher than Mark Morial.
Interesting.
And he thought he could convert that to voter support.
Right.
However, he was not the most effective candidate. But that stimulated his interest to run for mayor. He did. He just wasn't effective on the campaign.
Made the runoff and then lost to Ray Nagin.
Right. Now speaking of police chiefs, the current police chief in New Orleans, Ann Kirkpatrick, is she and Helena Moreno, in terms of polling and favorabilities, were the 2 most popular public figures in the city.
Interesting.
And her ratings have been very good. So it's likely she will stay on as police chief, I would think.
You think so? I
can see why. Why change when you have a process in place?
When it's working.
And it's working.
Yes, just getting out from under the consent decree. Obviously, that's a huge win for the city budget, among other things. Recruiting, things like that. The NOPD has maintained that the consent decree has been a hamstring on that front. And obviously, we have a historic low number of officers. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. That'll be probably one of the highest priority items, for Helena Moreno, who we've called as the next mayor of New Orleans.
And I'm going to circle back just for a minute, back to Division 1 in the at-large race. Matthew Willard is now getting close to 60% of the vote, and we called that race more than a half hour ago, I think. So, again, I'm even more confident now. But, J.P. Morrell in Division 2 is also doing very well. Looking at, he's up to 67% of the vote. So, those are big numbers. Those guys are going to get more votes than anybody else. Morrell getting north of 39,000 so far, and Willard getting almost just north of 35,000. So, and Morrell had a much easier time, plus he's an incumbent. So that speaks very well for Willard. A state rep coming out of one House district, running citywide, and racking up those kind of numbers. He's somebody to watch in years to come.
All right, you heard it here first, just like you did with the mayor's race, and calling that for Helena Moreno, winning it outright tonight. We want to go out to the Moreno headquarters, where Sharice Gibson and Devin Bartolotta are joining us live tonight. I imagine it is a happy atmosphere there at this hour, guys.
Yeah, certainly a happy atmosphere. Actually, everyone has been dancing, some people hugging and congratulating each other, but they're taking a stopping short and claiming victory. We just had Senator Mary Landrieu get on the stage, and she said that the numbers look wonderful, but they still want to be cautious, and they are standing by. We did hear that Helena Moreno is in the building, though.
Yeah, and it seems as though they're being very hesitant to call it too early, even though WWL Louisiana has called this race. We're expecting to see Helena Moreno very shortly here, but overall, there have not been big cheers. It seems like everyone's a little bit subdued until they decide as a campaign that they're comfortable calling this race.
Yeah, I know that we've been talking about, can she win this outright? And of course, our political analysts said that they believe that she can. Most of the people we've spoken to tonight say that they do believe that she'll take more than 50% of the vote. She has always been in the lead in all aspects when it comes to the independent polls, when it came to the amount of fundraising dollars, and now leading tonight on election night. More than 50% of the vote so far with this race called. There's a lot of music and a lot of jubilation in the room.
Yeah, the numbers have been on her side pretty much the entire time, and here we are again. We know that there are a lot of excited people. We just spoke, I believe we're going to hear very shortly our interview with Representative Mandy Landry, where she said she's very excited. She thinks that Helena Moreno is going to have a good relationship with the brand new city council that we're going to have come in, and also deal very well with some of the same problems that her constituents deal with in the city of New Orleans.
Yeah, I know the first 100 days, everyone curious to find out how she's going to tackle some of the issues the city is dealing with right now, but she's very familiar with those issues because she sits on city council and has been council member at large. I'm sorry if it's hard to hear me right now. As you can imagine, the music got a little bit louder as the numbers started to come in, and people are a little bit more excited, anxiously standing by and waiting for Helena to take the stage. But again, they are approaching this with caution. They don't want to call it too soon, though WWL TV has called it.
You know, whenever you cover things like this, there's always that moment where it turns into a victory party or not. Right. And we are very quickly approaching that moment, so we'll see very soon when they decide to call this as a campaign.
All right, we're going to send it back to you, Katie, in the studio.
All right, thanks so much. I know everybody can't wait to hear what she has to say after she decides to come out and she's ready to accept the mayor's office of the city of New Orleans. So it is a historic night for sure. We're also apparently ready, our analysts are, to call another race tonight, and that is for Orleans Parish Sheriff.
The race is over. There's a new sheriff in town, and it's still a she, but it's not the same she. It's Michelle Woodfork. She's got 56% of the vote, with about 60% or 2/3 of the votes that are going to be cast already counted. She's in. She's the new sheriff.
Okay, so no runoff in that race
either.
No
runoff in that race. A lot of the races being decided, citywide races.
Are you all surprised at that?
Not really.
No?
Well, we could talk about social media, the negative attack ads. There are limitations about how much you should attack.
Yeah.
Especially when you attack a woman.
A woman, and it got to the point of being a little tabloidish and gossipy. And the attacks came after early vote.
Right.
So then you think it may have been too little or too much too late?
Oversaturation of attacks.
Okay, interesting. And so, I mean...
And one thing to keep in mind about this race is 84% of the city voted against the incumbent sheriff, Susan Hudson.
Yeah. Wow.
84%.
Yeah, that is definitely a way to put it in perspective.
In the early vote, Michelle Woodfork got 60%. Slightly more than 60% of the early vote, and that was a massive vote. That's 38,000 votes cast. She got 60% of that, and it came from every precinct in town. So it was like an early poll with a margin of error of maybe 1%, or less. So that's a real indicator.
Interesting. When you all were polling prior to this, were you polling that Helena Moreno was in the 50s? Were you polling that Michelle Woodfork was in the 50s?
Here's what we saw. In terms of Helena Moreno, it would bounce between 47, 50, 52, back down to 48, depending on what was happening in the political environment. And she never lost any traction. So that was a great indicator as to what could happen on election night, along with what we see with early
Because those polls also have a larger percentage of undecided voters, obviously. You've decided on election night.
Well, the thing is, in terms of the polling I did, the last poll had her at 50 of registered voters and 52 of likely voters. But it also showed that she would win a runoff against either Duplessis or Thomas by over 25% of the vote. Wow. And she had a favorable rating of 60%. So it was hard to find a weakness there.
And another thing about the precincts that we're seeing reporting right now, they are exactly within 1% of the black and white registration citywide. So the precincts that we're getting, while it's not all of them, they really reflect the racial and geographic makeup of the city. So it's like
that's
a super
what you want in a poll.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why you
That's
have
how
a
you
poll.
do a poll
So-
sample.
And that's why I'm very confident about Michelle Woodfork winning. That's why we were confident, 45 minutes ago about Helena Moreno winning outright. And the first call we made, I think, was both the mayor and the 2 at-large races.
Yeah.
Let me make a comment on polls. Quite often, the public polls, it's the horse race, who's ahead, who's behind. However, in the strategic and campaign polls, we look at various characteristics as to who you trust, the vision to lead the city. And that is where we saw a stronger bounce for Helena than for the other candidates. Voters look at those characteristics. What we see in the public polls, not always a true indicator as to what the final outcome may be.
Interesting.
Right. Very much so. And another thing, before the presidential election, I did a column, and the headline was "The Change Candidate Wins," and the Change Candidate won, even though it didn't look like it was going to be Donald Trump at first, but he ended up being the Change Candidate. It did the same thing in this election. And one of the things the polling showed was where Helena Moreno had the lead over all these other candidates, if she was seen as the Change Candidate, a lot of people didn't think she would be because she was on the city council for 8 years and part of city government. But nevertheless, she was seen as the Change Candidate. And something else that wasn't talked about much is she was perceived as the most honest candidate. And when you have a mayor who is under indictment,
That's a key factor.
integrity, honesty, that becomes important.
That's interesting. Well, she even campaigned on being the change candidate, so apparently that message stuck.
It got through.
Yeah.
One race that we should look at, we're not calling it, but it's worth talking about, is that red hot race for clerk of criminal district court.
Right.
Okay.
And,
Quickly, let's get to that.
And I can't pull a map up because we don't have it mapped, but I'm looking at it.
Right here.
In the overall vote, if we can pull that up, Lombard's at 51%. But in the absentee vote, the early and absentee vote, he got 53%. So those bode well for him, but it's because it's so close. I think it looks really good for him right now, but it's not like Moreno getting 57%, or rather 56, 57, or Woodfork getting 56 plus. But I think he's probably going to win. But we got to look more.
And he may not win in the primary. I mean, you've got a third candidate, Valencia Miles, who's getting 6% of the vote.
That's
so, if her vote goes up 1% and Duncan goes up 1%, he's under the 50. So we'll see.
In this race too, Calvin Duncan outspent
Darren
the
Lombard.
incumbent tremendously in terms of
And
media
Lombard did
visibility.
not run a very good race.
And Calvin Duncan had one of the best campaigns.
He ran a superb. His media was done by the same guy who did John Bell Edwards' media.
Yeah, it was very well done.
Very well done.
Well. And he maintained a presence from the start until election day. He never lost any momentum. Whereas Lombard was very low-key about it.
Well, and when he did speak, he didn't always say the right thing in terms politically. I mean, he hurt himself. He had a lot of unforced errors, frankly, and I thought it was it was kind of a sloppy campaign. But because of his name Lombard, which is very popular, it's like Woodfork and Willard, it's a name that goes back in that office in particular. And he had that benefit of his incumbency, and because of that, I think he's winning. He's winning in spite of the campaign he ran, if he wins.
Well, it wasn't only the campaign against him. I mean, when you have a clerk of court who whether it was intentional or not, sends criminal court records to a garbage dump, there's an issue there.
I think it's been a hot button for voters, and
We'll
we're going to continue. Yeah, we'll see. This one's still too tight to call, but obviously we're making our way through these citywide elections, calling the Slidell mayor's race. It has been an interesting night, and we're going to continue on that line of topics as we take a quick little break and come right back with our Election on 4 coverage. Welcome back to our Elections on 4 coverage tonight. It is just before 9:30 in the evening. The polls closed at 8. We've already gone through and called a number of significant races that are happening tonight. One of those is Orleans Sheriff. We have already called the race for Michelle Woodfork as the winner, and we want to get over to Susan Hudson, who's speaking now. She's the incumbent sheriff. She's speaking with reporters tonight at her campaign celebration.
Every day, and I'm proud of the men and women of this department and the work that they've done, and I'm proud of my work, and I trust the people of the city. Thank you.
Whatever happens tomorrow.
That's all right now.
What's your course of action?
That's it right now. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so that was incumbent Susan Hudson. She just spoke with us saying that she's hopeful, that she's not ready to bow out of this race, and she did tout a lot of her achievements, saying that she is a change agent and a candidate who is capable of reforming her office. And again, she's talking about being very hopeful at this point. And you know, after speaking with her, she was very brief during her conversation with us, but she was very optimistic. And so, although right now the polls are showing that she is behind, and obviously our contributor and expert, Clancy Dubose, did call this race, she is not ready to bow out at this time. I'm going to send it back to you, Katie.
All right, so Susan Hudson is not conceding this election at this hour, 9:30. We called it a little while ago. At least Clancy Dubose looked at the numbers, really crunched those to figure out whether or not we had enough precincts in and enough tally in order to call this for Michelle Woodfork. And, you know, Clancy, you feel pretty strongly that this is going in the direction of Woodfork.
Just to double check, Michelle Woodfork and Helena Moreno are getting within like 25 votes of each other citywide right now. They're running, I'm not saying they got the same votes, but they got the same number of votes.
Yeah, right.
And it's you know, they're both at about 55 or so percent, 55, 56%. And it's remarkable. This is a hell of a night for women candidates when you think about it.
It certainly is.
Mayor, you know, sheriff, you know, Cindy Nguyen running really well out in the east. I mean, the first council member reelected was District B council member Leslie Harris, one of the female members of our council, with no opposition.
District A will have
District A will have 2 women in the runoff. So it's been a very good night for women candidates.
We do want to go back to Susan Hudson because apparently she is standing by to speak with Winston Reed. So let's go back out to them if we can for a second just to hear the full statement from the incumbent sheriff. Winston?
So tonight, there'll be a referendum on that. And I'm looking forward to the results. I am hopeful. I am confident that the people of the city will see the hard work of the men and women of this office who are all around me today. So that's how I feel right now.
Sheriff, you're trailing right now, third in the results. How are you feeling after seeing the results coming in?
I'm still hopeful, always. It ain't over till it's over.
Amen.
We got a long ways to go, precincts where I'm strong in, so we're looking forward. I'm looking forward to that and the final results.
Ultimately, why did you enter this re-election campaign despite all of the controversy around your office?
What I just said, all the hard work of the men and women of this office to move this city forward. When we treat the root causes of crime in the jail, this is what will make this city safer. People are on average 2 to 5 years in jail before they even go to trial. So what, can they learn more to be more criminal? Or they can learn they can get education, they can get job training, they get mental health treatment and addiction treatment. And that's what we do every day. And I'm proud of the men and women of this department and the work that they've done. And I'm proud of my work. And I trust the people of the city. Thank you.
Whatever happens.
Okay, that was what Susan Hudson said just a few moments ago. We were able to turn that around for you so that you could hear exactly what she had to say. She was not conceding. Again, that was just a few moments ago. That was not like earlier in the night, hours ago. Just moments ago, after our analysts have said strongly that they feel like Michelle Woodfork is the clear winner tonight in this race.
Well, look, 22,000 votes separate Susan Hudson from Michelle Woodfork. And we are at 40, some really more than that, other votes in from various precincts.
We're over 70% of the votes in, the votes.
That's
because
a lot.
Absentee vote, again, the early vote and absentee vote were huge.
Yeah,
okay, they're like 30% of the votes being cast.
Right.
So you add 30% to that 41%, because they don't count that as a precinct. So when they say 41% of the precincts, they're talking about today's precincts, that's today's vote. Add the absentee vote, add another 30% of that. We're above 71% of the votes being counted there's no way that Helena Moreno doesn't win. There's no way that Michelle Woodfork doesn't win. And there's no way that J.P. Mayoral, all the other races that we've called, the ones that we've called, we got it right.
I mean, I think the only council race that we haven't called is District E at this point.
District what?
E.
E. Well, yeah. Well, that's very. I think we did call it. It's going to be a runoff.
Called
it's going to be a runoff with
Okay.
Cindy Nguyen running first and Jason Hughes second. Yeah.
Okay, but that's the only one that we're going to see a runoff in, which is
No, A is a runoff.
A is a runoff. Yes,
A is
I'm
a
sorry,
runoff.
A. In the
It's the
Lakeview
two with
district.
no incumbent, and which is what we expected.
Okay. What do you, any thoughts? Helena Moreno, we're expecting to hear from her in just a few minutes. Apparently, a lot of people have taken the stage over at her headquarters, so we're going to go to that in just a minute. As soon as we hear that she is out there, of course, we'll bring that to you as she makes an acceptance speech as the next mayor of New Orleans. But this is a historic night. You mentioned women voters as well playing a big role here, not just the female candidates.
Women are 56% of the registered voters, and they cast 62% of the early and absentee votes. Now, it'll take some time before we can crunch the numbers and see how many, what the turnout among women voters was total, election day today, as well as early and absentee. But if the early vote is any measure, it's really, you know, it's a big night for women, but women made it happen.
Yep, absolutely.
Now look here at the criminal district court clerk's race. We got more results in, and now it's 66%
You know,
reporting.
Lombard has fallen under 50.
Lombard has fallen back, and there's a runoff. Look at that.
Darren Lombard, Calvin
That's why we
Duncan.
didn't call it.
There you go. So that has become a hot race, you know, but what we want to do right now, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but Cedric Richmond taking the stage, the former congressman, to introduce Helena Moreno as the next mayor of New Orleans. Let's listen in.
Osborne, Livingston, St. Aug, Kennedy, Ben Franklin. New Orleans gave me everything. Equipped me to go from New Orleans East to the White House. That's why I'm NOLA for life. But the real question is, who is going to lead this city to provide for the next generation? For our young families, for our elders, for our entrepreneurs, and for our culture bearers. I have a feeling that the people in this room know the answer to that question. It will be a passionate, caring, and courageous leader. One that will work on behalf of everyone, no matter where you live, no matter how much you make, what you look like, or who you voted for. She is the leadership we need. She is the one who can unify this city. She is a fighter and a fixer. But to many of us, she is a friend. So it is my honor and my privilege to introduce, for the first time, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce, for the first time, the mayor-elect of the city of New Orleans, Helena Moreno.
We've definitely got our thing together. Isn't it nice? I mean, really, when you really sit and think about it, isn't it really, really nice? I can easily feel myself slipping in more and more waves. That super world of my own. Nobody but you and me. We've got it together, baby.
Please welcome the next mayor of the city of New Orleans, Helena Moreno!
My dreams.
Great, Chief. Wow. Oh my gosh. I love y'all. New Orleans, you are my everything. You are my everything. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you, New Orleans. I am, yes. I am overwhelmed, and I just want to thank every single person who came out and voted. I really want to start tonight, though, by thanking God up above. Yes. Because there is no way, right, Barbara, that we could have done this without his steady hand on this campaign, no doubt. I really want to thank my amazing team. What a team. What's up, Michelle? I see you. To my amazing volunteers, to my interns, to the interns. That's right. To my family, and of course, to my amazing husband, Chris. But more than anything, of course, I want to thank you, the people of New Orleans, because you are ready to take our city in a new direction. Tonight is a good night, no doubt about it. You know, we are definitely now moving forward toward change, which is what, of course, we all want, right? Toward becoming a city that works, toward becoming a city where we can all thrive, where opportunities are not just for some, but for everyone. And we have fought hard to get here. But I'll tell you this, I really hope that you are not weary, because the hard work is actually just ahead. As I mentioned before, this campaign has really been about moving our city in a new direction, because we can't keep doing things the same way and expect to have different results. That's why my administration will work with urgency, coordination, and collaboration to deliver for the people of New Orleans. To deliver Super Bowl services for the people of New Orleans year-round, that's right, because it shouldn't take guests coming in town for the city to finally get itself together. Let's face it, we really are at a pivotal point right now. We are losing population fast because of lack of opportunity, lack of affordability, and because it is just too hard to live here. So bottom line, we cannot afford to fail, and I will not fail you. New Orleans, we are such an amazing city. We are one of the most amazing cities in the world. It is our culture and our people that actually makes us so special. We are a diverse city that gives and offers so much, but sometimes it feels like we are left with very little. It is my responsibility as mayor to now grow opportunity in our city. And let me be very clear, I'll stop at nothing to create high-paying jobs, amplify our small businesses and our Black-owned businesses, support our culture bearers, and provide a dedicated team at City Hall to ensure underserved areas like New Orleans finally get the attention it deserves. You know, we have seen some division during this campaign season. Right, but as you all know, I've always been someone who has been about bringing people together and about building broad coalitions. So tonight, let's come together. Let's start to come together as a city, because together we can accomplish so much. I look forward to working with our new city council in partnership to get things done. I welcome their help, their input, as we come together to find solutions to our most persistent problems. I look forward to working with our New Orleans delegation and our state legislature on a strategic plan to ensure that our city gets the resources that it needs. Many of you all in this room know that the preparation and the decision to run for mayor, that it was not something that I took lightly, because to be a good mayor, you have to be a 24/7 mayor. So tonight, you, the people of New Orleans, become my #1 priority. and I take this responsibility very seriously. That is why I am so grateful to, once again, my husband, Chris, for his full support. Because with no hesitation, he and my family that's here with me tonight said, Helena, go and do this for the city of New Orleans. To my parents, Felix and Nancy, who are with me tonight, they always taught me to never give up and to always give back. I want to thank you all so much for your love and guidance. Thank you, Margarita. And now I really want to take a moment to recognize the more than a dozen candidates who ran for mayor, because it is not an easy task. The forums alone, I think we had like 280 forums alone, right? And let me just say this, because I really do look forward to being a mayor for all people living in New Orleans, including those who did not support me. I'll continue to work hard to earn your trust and support every single day. I want to say this too, this could not have been possible without the more than 2,000 volunteers. We also, of course, had an amazing campaign staff, and I want to just go ahead and thank some key people that really fought hard to ensure that change is coming to our city. That includes Donna Glapion, the amazing Barbara Major, who had my back all the time, my good friend, former United States Senator Mary Landrieu, her brother, former New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, the amazing Desiree Charbonnet, my dear friend, my mentor, and our former Congressman Cedric Richmond, our current Congressman Troy Carter, our DA Jason Williams, and my longtime friend and also a partner on the City Council, just re-elected overwhelmingly, Councilmember J.P. Morrell. JP. And then I just want to thank three very special people. The first person is someone who has always had my back, a very loyal member of my team, someone who used to serve as my chief of staff, left serving as my chief of staff, and then came onto the campaign side to run strategy with just precision. And that person is Andrew Tuzzolo. Thank you, Andrew. The other key person that I really, have to give a major shout out to, because this person also was just a great sounding board for me every single day. Lee, his partner, I'm so sorry, I know that I called Blair so often, all the time. But Blair Boutte, he is another key person who made tonight happen. And then finally, to the woman who put all of this together, to the woman who tonight becomes the first woman to ever manage a winning mayoral campaign in the city of New Orleans, Renee LaPerullerie. Renee, none of us could have gotten here without you, and we probably wouldn't have even been on time. So. All right, y'all, so tonight I want you to have a good time. I want you to celebrate. I hope you enjoy the evening. But in the morning, the hard work continues, and actually the harder work begins, all right? And I'll end by saying this, I just want to make sure that you all so fully understand that while some may see a broken city, I actually see so many solutions. I want you who've been just so frustrated to just hold on. Just hold on, because we're about to take this city in a whole new direction so that you can always, always call New Orleans home. Thank you all so much. God bless you, and God bless the city of New Orleans.
That is Mayor-elect Helena Moreno making her acceptance speech here in the city of New Orleans. A historic night for the city, for residents all across the metro area. This is, as she mentioned, a new direction for the city of New Orleans. In addition to her new leadership, we also have new leaders in the city council as well, and of course in the sheriff's seat. So we want to go over to the sheriff's race, where Susan Hudson, the incumbent sheriff who has not won tonight, who is losing tonight, is speaking. So we want to go live out there. Never mind, we're not going to do that because apparently she's done speaking. We're going to get that back to you in just a little while. So stick with us, and we're going to get back to Susan Hudson in a minute. But we have yet to hear from Michelle Woodfork, who our analyst called over an hour ago, for Michelle Woodfork, this race. And we did hear.
I think Renee LaParolari played a role in Woodfork's election as well.
I think so. She was part of the campaign.
Or helped manage 2 winning campaigns for women candidates. It's a big night for Renee LaParolari.
Yeah, she's been a big player in New Orleans politics for a long time. So, it's not surprising to hear her being at the helm of that. But I think everyone can agree it was a very well-run campaign.
Yeah. After winning 2 citywide elections, this woman needs a vacation.
Yes.
For sure. And,
she's earned it.
A huge margin for Helena Moreno tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, this was surprising, I think, to a lot of people.
And Moreno and Woodfork both won by almost within a percentage point. The same margin, about the same number of actual votes. So I'm sure there was a huge overlap in their support as well.
That margin is why we've been able to call these races so early tonight. You all can talk about that a little bit, and the fact that, it is numbers and statistics that go into this to make sure that you guys know that this is how it's going to come out in the end. But how do we know, based on what we're seeing, that Helena Moreno is the next mayor of New Orleans, Michelle Woodfork is the next sheriff of Orleans Parish?
One thing I would say before we get into that is, looking at Helena Moreno's campaign, what we saw was a flawless 8-year campaign in what it looks like. She's been running for mayor for 8 years. They had a campaign that was about as close to flawless as you could have.
I can't think of a single mistake she made.
And it was a hell of an effort. It really was. And looking at it from a standpoint of political people, it was quite an accomplishment.
And you look at the level of African American support that she had, it's because they felt they knew her. For people to vote for anybody, whether it's someone of the same race and or the same gender or not, New Orleanians, and I think most voters everywhere, but especially here in New Orleans, we want to feel like we know that person. And Moreno went to the churches, the fairs, the neighborhood meetings starting 8 years ago, which is why her level of African American support. I neglected earlier to mention State Senator Jimmy Harris, who's a quiet but very effective legislator. He came out very early for Moreno, and he's got a lot of friends in the political and clergy and all that. Very influential guy behind the scenes. So he, along with Jason Williams, the DA, and Cedric, former Congressman Cedric Richmond, the level of African American support that she had was because they knew her. The clergy, the politicians, the neighborhood leaders, she worked it. How many politicians get accused of only showing up at election time, to church, or to the fair, or to the neighborhood association meeting? She wasn't like that. She went through them all
the other
time.
thing I would really congratulate her on, because I know how difficult it is to do this, she went to just about every public forum she was invited to. All the debates, from what I gather, most of the neighborhood forums. And that's tough. That's tough.
Physically wears you out.
And she did it. And a lot of people were saying, well, she's way ahead. Why is she doing all that? Why is she doing all these debates?
Well, this is why.
She did.
She wins.
She wins outright, which I think may surprise some people, but not these three.
No, we saw a trend in some polling in terms of how we position her and presentation of her themes. So it always was around in that 46 to 52% range.
Right.
And what she was able to do is, one, build a multiracial coalition.
That's right.
Two, build a coalition that was diverse in all the council districts. And three, she wasn't reactionary, because there were a lot of attacks the last 2 weeks of the campaign after early vote, but it was very measured. And it reflected the tempo that people wanted to see in the next leaders of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so lucky to have you three with us. We're going to continue our Elections on 4 coverage right after this.
Live from WWL Louisiana, this is an Elections on 4 special.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for watching. I'm Katie Moore with this Elections on 4 special tonight, making history here in the Channel 4 studios as we watch a new mayor of New Orleans elected in Helena Moreno. We were able to call that race early on in the election cycle tonight, given the huge margin that she has claimed victory in this case. Precincts still coming in. You can see the results on your screen right now. Helena Moreno currently has 55% of the vote, which means there will be no runoff in this election. She wins it outright tonight with 86% of the precincts reporting. That is not including the absentee ballots and the early votes, as our analysts have been saying throughout the night. But Helena Moreno, now the mayor-elect of the city of New Orleans. That is just one of the big races that we're going to continue to follow as we continue throughout the night tonight. Not only are we following the mayor's race, but there's a significant change in leadership on the city council as well. In addition to that, there is a new sheriff in town here in Orleans Parish. We're going to get to all of that for you in just a few minutes, but we want to begin tonight with Sharice Gibson and Devin Bartolotta, who are out live at at Helena Moreno's campaign party tonight. Moreno just got off the stage a few moments ago talking about her vision for the city of New Orleans. Her campaign slogan was taking the city in a new direction, and that is exactly what she talked about doing tonight. So Sharice and Devin, what are your thoughts after hearing her speak?
The mood is definitely different from the last time.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I said the mood is definitely different from the last time we checked in. It is a full-on victory party. Helena Moreno is just steps away from us right now. I'm sorry, Sharice and I are trying to hear each other because it's pretty loud in here. Helena Moreno is just steps away. We're expecting to hear from her in just seconds here. We just had her acceptance speech. She had a stage full of people, full of family and friends, and also fellow politicians.
Yeah, a lot of what she said on stage echoed what she talked about during the mayoral debate, making this quote-unquote Super Bowl city, alluding to the fact that during the Super Bowl, the city services were stepped up a notch during the Super Bowl. She wants to make that 24/7 and has also talked the same deal about being a 24/7 mayor. Helena Moreno got on stage and also talked about being a mayor for all people. She said that she understands that some people didn't vote for her, but she also wants to make sure that she supports those people. We actually have Helena Moreno walking up right now. Mayor-elect Helena Moreno walking up right now. All right. She's coming up.
Congratulated along the area here by supporters who have filled this room tonight. We didn't know this was at maximum capacity.
All right, we have Helena Moreno standing by right now. And we'll help her on up right here. Here you go. All right, thank you so much for joining us. First, congratulations to you. I know this has been overwhelming. I know this was a very tough race, but you've been planning for this the first 100 days. What can we expect from you?
Well, really, I'm actually going to start now, like immediately, because I now have an additional month really to start working through transition. And then remember, I'm currently on the city council where I'll be working through the budget now with this current council to start shaping things really the way that I may want them to look when I take office in January. But really within my first 100 days, what you'll see from my administration is zeroing in, focusing in on our city services, making sure that we finally get a street maintenance program going, our street lights stay on, our traffic lights, and also, of course, really revamping our very troubled city departments like safety and permits. That work really has to start immediately.
There was a lot of, you talked about how you want to be a mayor for all people, even those who did not support you or did not vote for you. You got big cheers when talking about some neighborhoods that you'd like to see some reinvestment in. How much work is that going to take to earn the trust of those who maybe didn't support you or where you might see big challenges?
And ultimately, I hope that my work that I put forth as mayor ultimately will say, you know what, maybe I was wrong about Helena, but ultimately I'm mayor for the entire city now, for all people here, whether they supported me or not. And I plan on, working nonstop for anyone, whether they supported me or they didn't.
Well, you talked about the budget, obviously still sitting on the city council. This budget is going to tee up for you when you take over with mayorship. Anything on this budget that is concerning to you currently with city council?
I mean, first and foremost, we really need to understand, as I've said before, like what is our real budget shortfall. And that's why I brought in the state legislative auditor, Mike Wagasback, to come in and give us that third party look to see where we're really at. And then once we have that real assessment, we can all work collaboratively to try to deal with that issue. But one of the concerns that I have with the budget is that we outsource so much. A lot of contractor, consultant work, things that we could be doing in-house. So how can we start reshaping the budget that way? And also, I'll probably be, I will be reorganizing the government, the city government a little bit differently than what this mayor has done, and I think that'll create some...
How do you plan to do so?
So, for example, I think that there are some city departments that, for example, are not the main priorities for the people of this city, that potentially we could ensure that economic development is boosted and DPW is boosted, but then maybe some others that haven't been producing the results that we need, maybe those we scale back a little bit. So really, my priorities in my administration are going to be the people's priorities. Their top priorities is what I need to reshape kind of our budget and city government around.
My last question for you is that you are sworn in 3 months from tomorrow. What does tomorrow look like for you, and what does the next 3 months look like for you?
Sure. So tomorrow, as you can imagine, up early to start thanking, different groups and going to different churches to thank everyone. And then immediately right after that, I start putting together my transition team. So that's my Sunday. And then we start working through transition. But like I said, I'm glad I have an additional month to get everything together and put together right.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, Mayor-elect Helena Moreno, may help her down there. We just heard from her, again, echoing some of the things that we have heard throughout this campaign, her talking about being a mayor for all people and for the people's issues. Some of those issues include infrastructure. She talks about restructuring and reorganizing city government, and she also discusses the budget that is currently being, of course, we know City Council really holds the purse here, the budget that she still fulfills her duties as on City Council, and that budget is what's going to set her up when she begins her tenure.
And of course, the work, as she said, does begin tomorrow with the transition team. That's kind of the next step. And then in mid-January, we'll see her sworn in as the next mayor. And she has made a lot of promises within the first 100 days, things she'd like to see go much more smoothly, collaboration she would like to see in terms of getting city services back up and running as smoothly as possible. So there's a lot to come in the next few months here.
Yeah, I think a lot to come indeed. I don't know if you guys knew this. We were over at the Civic Theater, and apparently there were a number of people trying to get inside. This was a very big mayoral campaign. She said she had over 2,000 volunteers that were here. We've seen things on social media. The very first mayoral candidate to have a commercial on television. So she ran this campaign in a very big way.
Yeah.
We got some very big results out of it.
Paid off for her, for sure. All right, that'll do it for us for now. From the Civic Theater, we'll send it back to us.
All right, thanks so much, guys. And we want to go to our amazing team of analysts who have been with me throughout the night, who have given us just the greatest insight. You all made it possible for us to call so many of these races almost out of the gate. We have Ron Fauché, Silas Lee, and of course, Clancy Dubos, our political analyst, joining us. And this really has been a historic night, and one that I think a lot of people maybe suspected was going to happen, but didn't really think it would be by this large of a margin. Any thoughts on that, Ron? Let's start with you.
Well, there's a few things I wanted to mention. It looks like we're getting close to maybe having the 40% turnout. And
wow.
At the beginning of the program, you might recall, we said, that's the benchmark. If it gets to that, it looks like it's a nice big jump from where it was before. A couple of other things about Helena Moreno that I'd like to say. Give me a chance to have a little fun here.
Okay, let's do it.
She is the fourth City Council at-large member to get elected mayor as an incumbent council person at large since the city charter. We had Sidney Bartholomew, Moon Landrieu, Vic Skiro, and now we have Helena Moreno. And the other thing I noticed was, I believe Helena is about 48 years old.
48, just turned 48.
Yeah, and every mayor who was elected since Moon Landrieu was elected under 50.
Every mayor since May Street was under 50. Well, almost 100 years ago. Under 50.
Wow, we like a young mayor.
Exactly, yeah.
We like a young mayor here.
We
We like that energy.
Yeah, well, it's not a rule, but it sure looks like a pattern after 90 years. Okay, of mayors. And the oldest was Mitch. He was 49.
Wow.
His father was 39, Moon.
Right.
Well, we're going to hear from Michelle Woodfork shortly, but we do want to just continue to hear from you guys about what you're thinking, overall thoughts. And how about you, Silas? What are your overall thoughts?
Starting with the early vote trends, we saw she was able to maintain a level in terms of 65. Now we see us at 55%. And it reflected the coalition she built, the fact that she was able to withstand the attacks, and she never lost presence in the community. Once she started, she never stopped. And that was critical. And I go back to voters look at the characteristics, vision, trust in leading the city, had a plan to articulate. All those are intrinsic characteristics that determine the strength of your victory. and that's a strong victory.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear the strategy behind it, because we, as the public, just see these polls that are made public, you know, the horse race polls. But as you said, you know, this is the real strategy behind it.
Well, we have an index of questions that we always test, and quite often those questions, the results will indicate whether or not a person will be a strong candidate or if they're going to be ineffective.
All right, on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back, everyone. A historic night in the city of New Orleans as we continue to follow the major municipal elections that are happening both in Orleans Parish over in Slidell. It has been a big night for voters there, and the police chief in Slidell has gotten elected mayor. He will be the next mayor of the city of Slidell. Now, also big races here in Orleans Parish, not only for the mayor of New Orleans, Helena Moreno, now the mayor-elect of the city of New Orleans, but in addition to that, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's election has also been a hot race here in Orleans Parish. Michelle Woodfork, we have called, is going to be the next sheriff in Orleans Parish, rather. I kept going back to that. But we, of course, had a very tough race between Helena Moreno, Oliver Thomas, and Royce Duplessis. Those three have been the front runners for some time in that race. Let's hear from Royce Duplessis now about how this race played out.
For each and every one of you who are here tonight, I am so thankful for each and every person who is not here tonight, but that has supported this campaign, that has supported me. I cannot express to you how blessed I feel, how humbled I am by this experience, and what it means to me, what it means to my family who's standing here behind me. I just want to begin by making some personal thanks, some individual thanks. Obviously, everybody who's standing behind me, my mother and my father. Reese, yes. I'm so grateful for what they've given to me and my four brothers, and three brothers. It's four. I feel like it's four of us most time. This woman right here. I am so thankful that you have taken this journey with me, and you continue to take this journey with me. Every day she is unwavering. She is a soldier. She is a champion. She is a brilliant human being that I'm just grateful and blessed to go through this life with. Thank you, Crystal. Thank you so much. And Reese has been a champion throughout this process. She's sad right now, but I'm trying to let her know that we're still victorious tonight, y'all. A couple of members, a couple of people that I want to thank. I have to say certain names here tonight. Tyrone Walker and Cherie Teamer Henley. Now let me tell y'all something. 3 months ago, a little bit over 3 months ago, when I called them, I said, look, Crystal and I have been praying on this, and this is something that I want to do, knowing good and well this was going to be a challenge, knowing good and well this was going to be an uphill battle. These two individuals didn't blink. They said we're going to get in the foxhole with you. We're going to do it. We know it's going to be a challenge, but they didn't blink. They didn't waver. And I love you both forever. Thank you so much. I also want to thank my big sister, Tammy Major, Kelly Brown, James Carter, Carling Dinkler, Sierra Blanchard, Myra Richardson, Dante Edmond, Greg Arnoley, Mr. Larry Jackson, Ravi Sangiasetti, Tucker Crawford. I also want to thank Mayor Sidney Bartholomew. I want to thank Chief Justice Burnett Johnson, Clerk, that's right, Clerk Chelsea Richard Napoleon. I also want to thank School Board Member Katie Bodewin, State Representative Alonzo Knox. I also want to thank my good brother and friend, Cleveland Spears. There are so many more people to thank that we could be here all night. If you hosted a fundraiser for me, if you volunteered for me, if you knocked doors, if you canvassed, if you waved signs, if you gave a word of encouragement, if you said a prayer for me, if you sent me a text message in the middle of the night saying just be encouraged, just being there for me and my family means so much, and so many of you did that.
That is State Senator Royce Duplessis making his speech tonight, talking about the campaign that he ran. He had to run fast and furiously in order to get to where he got tonight. So claiming a victory in that, and our political analysts here all seem to think this is not the last that we're going to hear from him politically. So much more to come from Royce Duplessis, and much more to come for us after a quick break. We'll be right back.
He got really ahead.
Welcome back, everyone. We are keeping tabs on all these hot button races that we've seen tonight. One of those is Orleans Parish Sheriff. So let's listen in to the new Sheriff of Orleans Parish, Susan Hudson. Michelle Woodfork.
With him, everything is possible. I also want to thank my parents. Mom and Dad, thank you for always supporting me. Thank you for raising me to be a servant and a protector. Thank you for raising me to be tough, to know that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. To my beautiful son, Nicholas, thank you for being the best son a mother could ever dream of. I hope I make you proud, son. To my big sister, Rochelle. You are the very best. To my team, John Litchfield, Jason Williams, Cedric Richmond, Telly Medina, Jacques Moriel, Jared Ossamont, and Team Woodfork, and that's Tiffany, Chantel, Rochelle, Master, Delisa, Linda, Vanicia, Robert, Mr. Smitty, David, Glendon, Jock, Nate, Emma, Percy, Brandy, Dana, and Telly Jr. My entire team, thank you all. And to everyone here, thank you for helping me reach my dream of becoming the next Sheriff of Orleans Parish. To Sheriff Hudson, thank you for your service, and thank you for running a campaign focused on the issues that people care about. I would truly treasure this moment because it was not given to us. It was not easy. It was not pleasant. But a wise woman reminded me that when they are short and when they go low, we go high. To the people of New Orleans, I promise to be a sheriff you can be proud of, a true community partner. As sheriff, I will take my responsibility for the care, custody, and control of the jail seriously. Through increasing recruitment, investing in our deputies, investing in technology, I will ensure that we operate a safe and secure jail. A jail where the deputies and those housed there are safe. A jail where no one leaves until their release date. And while I have people in my custody, I will work with them to ensure that they are better people when they leave, not better criminals. To do that, I will focus on rehabilitation that includes mental health services, substance abuse treatment, education, and job skill training. We will provide the people who leave our jail with the skills to take advantage of another chance, sometimes their last chance. That helps them, and that makes our community safer. I will be a true community partner. In this city, we have so many great groups, great organizations that are doing good work in the community, the hard work in this community, and they all can use some help. I will be there for you. I will help you, and I will partner with you. As a true law enforcement professional, I know the importance of working with our law enforcement partners across the region to fight crime and protect our families. So over the coming weeks and months, I look forward to sitting down with law enforcement leaders to collaborate, to listen, and to learn. I also understand the importance that the courts, both civil and criminal, play in our daily lives. Those courts cannot function efficiently and effectively without the cooperation and execution of the Sheriff's Office. Over the transition, I will meet with the judges to ensure that we are doing our part and making sure that the office meets my high standard of performance. There is so much more I want to say about my plans as sheriff, and I will over the next 6 months as we transition. But tonight, we get to celebrate. We get to celebrate the long, hard-fought journey to victory, to celebrate the hard work of our many volunteers, celebrate the conversations with friends and strangers to talk about my experience and vision, to celebrate our victory. So now, let's celebrate.
Sheriff-elect of Orleans Parish, Michelle Woodfork, the former superintendent of NOPD. It was an interim job. She turned that after getting passed over, really, for the regular superintendent's position for a run for sheriff now. Has turned around that sort of rejection from Mayor LaToya Cantrell into a huge political win tonight. You can see her work in the room at her campaign party. You know, she has had the backing of many, as she mentioned there. She listed them, big name politicians in New Orleans and beyond. So Michelle Woodfork, now the sheriff-elect of Orleans Parish. Interestingly, she will not actually assume the office until June, July of next year. So there's a huge gap in time, which is a significant transition. I know that was difficult for incoming Sheriff Susan Hudson. Now, we do want to go out now to talk to Oliver Thomas. Oliver Thomas also running a big campaign for mayor, one of the front runners. Brandon Walker, Brianna Boudreaux standing by with what we have heard from Oliver Thomas so far. Hi, guys.
Hey there, Katie. So things are pretty quiet here. The room is empty. Oliver Thomas addressed his supporters in what was a pretty spirited speech, although acknowledging that the results were nowhere near what he had hoped, what he had thought would be tonight.
Yeah, he talked about specifically those numbers and that wide margin between them. He said he really never expected that to happen. Something that he said he feels some people were responsible for. He talked about not wanting to be a sore loser. He did congratulate Helena Moreno, but he said he felt that there were very specific players in making sure that one candidate, specifically Helena Moreno, was protected. And he was very clear in how he felt about that, and even asked the room a couple times if he could speak frankly with them, and was very honest. But as you mentioned, still a lot of energy, and said that the fight is not over.
And to that latter point there, we had the opportunity to speak to Councilman Thomas one-on-one after his speech, and so we asked him point blank, who were you talking about? Jason Williams, JP Morrell, they're on the stage tonight with Helena, among others, and he said yes. And he said that it's just now a matter of time to see what happens as we begin to acknowledge and bring in Mayor-elect Helena Moreno and the administration that she will put together. A campaign and administration Oliver Thomas says that he will support, and he also told his supporters to support.
Yeah, he said just because your candidate does not or was not elected tonight, as he spoke to the room, he said there is so much work still to be done in New Orleans, and he wants everyone to take part in that. He also, talked to the room with a lot of joy. He said that he had always been taught by his father to shake the hand of the opponent who beat you, and he said that that's exactly what he planned to do, but was very clear in that he felt certain candidates were protected, and he said he felt that that played a role that it shouldn't have in this campaign.
Yeah, also one more note about the numbers, of course, Royce Duplessis conceding tonight as well. Councilman Thomas saying that it's pretty safe to say that the black vote in particular was split between he and Duplessis, and as a result, he's seeing that success that Helena Moreno had tonight, winning outright, receiving over 50% of the vote in the primary. So it is interesting to see how those numbers did play out there, and the councilman's perspective on that vote that was split there between he and State Senator Duplessis.
I think that one-on-one interview showed a lot and was very interesting to hear him speak so clearly and transparently about certain things, and we'll certainly bring that to you more on air and online.
Okay, we want to toss to the interview now.
Okay, my thoughts are congratulations to the winner.
I mean, you got to give credit, man. To win in the first against two major opponents, and then I thought Frank Janusa did a great job coming on. So to have a campaign where you could have that level of block vote in the white community and then get enough crossover support, it was a brilliant effort and it worked.
Councilman Oliver Thomas speaking to me and Bree a few minutes ago after conceding this race, saying that he is not done, that he will continue to be a leader in his community.
Yep, and we'll have to see exactly what comes next. We asked him, and I said, do you have anything specific?
Yep.
He said he's not quite sure, but the fight is not over.
Yeah, someone in the crowd yelled Congress. So again, we'll see. But that is the latest here from Maison Blanche in New Orleans East. Katie, let's send things back to you.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Hearing from Oliver Thomas there, his concession speech. We, of course, heard from Royce Duplessis earlier as well. And the winner tonight, Mayor-elect Helena Moreno. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our election coverage, election on 4 tonight. We have talked about many races, especially those here in Orleans Parish. A significant leadership change for the city of New Orleans is underway. Beginning, of course, with the top executive in New Orleans, which will now be Mayor-elect Helena Moreno. As of January, she will be the mayor of New Orleans. You can see the results there from the vote tonight. That is with 100% of precincts reporting Helena Moreno elected mayor of New Orleans. Strong showing from Royce Duplessis, the state senator, and of course Councilman Oliver Thomas running against her, and Frank Janusa, who people have talked quite a bit about, more than we would typically be talking about a Republican in a race like this. But Frank Janusa coming in with 2%. Now, our legendary political analyst here joining me tonight, talking about how this race unfolded. I think many of you suspected that this is how the night would end, given that you two in particular have been doing polling for a number of candidates. Not surprised, but you know, Clancy, we didn't get to hear your final thoughts yet on what is going to shake out of all of this. You know, this is just the beginning, really.
It is, but my colleagues here and good friends talked about Helena Moreno and various aspects of her campaign. The one thing that struck me, to use a football analogy, you know, the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl because they were the most complete team. They were great on offense, great on defense, great on special teams. I think Helena Moreno ran the most complete campaign. Her social media was miles ahead of everybody else's. Her traditional media was excellent. Her PR was excellent. She's a very telegenic, very articulate, and you know, handles herself beautifully on camera, whether it's live or taped. And she's always very measured in her comments, you know, never out of control. She ran the most complete campaign, and she had enough money to do it. So she had everything going in her favor, and she made no mistakes. And that's it's hard to lose a race when you have all of that.
It is.
Yes.
For you.
And I would add to your apt analogy that in addition to that, she really won this race over the last 7.5 years.
Yes.
You know, because she was effectively positioning herself for mayor the whole time. So it wasn't just the campaign, which I think was superb. It was flawless. But it was an 8-year effort.
Right.
And
we've seen people run perfect
succeeded.
campaigns and still lose, but she ran a perfect campaign.
And she succeeded.
And one of my mentors, Ray Strother, said, you got to run a perfect campaign, you could still lose, but you got to have a little bit of luck. To the extent that luck played into it, she got lucky too. Now, I'm not saying she won because she's lucky, but she didn't have any bad luck. Let's put it that way. Nothing broke against her.
No, well, none of her opponents ever could figure out how to take votes away from her. They never could do it.
And it comes back to something I said earlier, among other things that we all said. The voters of New Orleans know Helena Moreno. Sure. And when they feel like they really know someone and they're going to vote for that person, it's hard to take them away from anybody.
The other thing is she was not handicapped with having to respond to any type of criticisms, controversies, so she was able to stay focused on the issues. Her favorabilities, we saw in all the polls, were consistently in the 70% range. Anytime you have that, no matter how much you attack using social media or traditional media, it doesn't stick. In fact, too many attacks can have the reverse effect where it impacts the person doing the attacks more than the individual.
And we
that
saw
you may
that with
focus on.
Royce Duplessis. The
Yeah.
first time he attacked Helena Moreno, called her corrupt and blamed her for the chaos at City Hall. He actually went from second place into third place for a week or so or more. And Oliver moved up to second place. And then Royce came back when he pulled that ad and changed course. But he ran a very negative, almost angry campaign. Whereas I think Oliver Thomas ran a more statesman-like campaign.
Well, you have
he
to
went
be
out
able
on a
to
high note.
You know what the other point is? You have to be able to read the social climate the campaign is taking place in. The voters definitely said that we want this to come to an end. We want to focus on closing the book and starting a new book. And let's move on to making this city address the critical issues we are concerned about.
Well, there certainly are many.
And look, the next mayor has a job to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, a big job to do.
Absolutely. We're going to...
And one piece of luck she's got, in a sense, is that having won tonight, she can get started on her transition early. And that extra 5 weeks can make a huge difference because you got Thanksgiving and Christmas and Kwanzaa and New Year's and Sugar Bowl and, you know, probably not the Saints playoffs, but, you know, hope springs eternal. And that's a lot to go between now and January 12th.
And she's going to have to be very public about it, because expectations for her are very high.
Well,
and for her to meet those expectations, she's got to show she's running an administration. she's got to show she's bringing change, and then she's got to deliver on it.
She's got to deliver on it.
Yeah,
All right,
one
you guys.
thing Mitch Landrieu, I'll close on this. When
Okay.
Mitch Landrieu got elected mayor, I asked him, what's the toughest part? He said, managing expectations.
That's right.
That was during his transition.
Right.
Wow.
You have to manage expectations.
Right. And he won, by the way, an open race in the first primary.
With
There
a
you go.
majority of black and white votes.
Yeah.
Big
History
majority.
This was the
repeating
easy
itself.
part.
Yeah. This is the easy part. You're right.
Yeah.
I think she knows.
That's right.
Hopefully she knows that, given
She
that she's
does.
been on the council as long as she has. All right, you guys, can't thank you enough for everything that you've contributed tonight.
And thank you. You've done a wonderful job.
Oh, thank
here.
you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, we're not done quite
We're the
yet.
lucky ones here. Come on.
We're not done quite yet. We need to get over to Slidell for a minute because we haven't heard from the new mayor-elect of Slidell, the police chief elected tonight. So let's hear from Meg Ferris.
Well, people are very happy here at the victory party now for the next mayor for Slidell, Randy Fandel. And joining us now is the next mayor. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, thank you.
So you become the third police chief at Slidell to become the mayor.
Yes.
Are you excited about this win, and what are your plans?
Oh, I'm very excited. My plans is to move the city forward. I'm going to start Monday.
You have said that you thought government didn't have the trust of the people and the culture needed to change. What exactly do you mean by that?
I'll use Slidell Police Department as an example. This community stepped up. They trust everything we do, and that's because we're transparent and we show the people everything we do every day. Moving forward with the city, I want to bring that trust. I want to get that trust from everybody in this city for the mayor's office. We're going to do the same thing.
You have said as former state trooper that you believe that with your experience, executive experience in running budgets of more than millions of dollars, this prepares you for this job.
Absolutely. I'm the same leadership that I've shown for the last 30 years across this state. I brought it to the Slidell Police Department. I'm ready to bring it to the mayor's office. I'm excited about it.
One of the things your opponent was for was the North Shore Square Mall being bought by the city. You were against that. What are your plans, or do you have any at this point for that area?
Absolutely. I wasn't against the city buying the mall at the time. I wanted the study to come back. The city paid $100,000 for that study and we didn't get it back. I want to get the study back, bring it to the people. If they like what they see in the study, I'm all for purchasing more to the mall.
Some other issues, let's see, we have drainage, we have lowering the cost of government, that government spending is too much. Let's start with government spending. What do you plan to do?
I'm gonna look at every department we have and see where we can save the money. We're not gonna survive forever on sales tax alone in Slidell. We gotta bring some industry in here, we gotta bring some light manufacturing in here and start moving the city forward.
Do you think with some of these big technology businesses now putting Louisiana on the map, Slidell could benefit from that?
Absolutely. We're located right here in the middle of 3 major interstates coming together. We're perfectly located for bringing industry into here.
The other thing voters said they wanted to know more about was drainage. I mean, if everything else is wonderful and your house is flooded, life isn't good.
Life isn't good. The drainage problems, we're going to seek the funding we need, and we're going to work with the parish and the state officials. We're going to get the funding we need to correct the drainage in this city.
How do you plan to do that?
I've worked with and I've made positive relationships across this state for many years. I'm going to work with the people that I've already met, work with the parish and state officials, bring in the funding, bring in real funding, and start doing some real work here.
Now, this buys you several months as mayor through June 30th. You will have to rerun in the spring.
Yes.
And the war chests that both you and your opponent had this time were bigger than ever before because of contribution changes in limits. So you have a good war chest going into that election for the spring?
We've got a lot of support moving forward into the spring, so I'm just going to carry that forward.
This party is huge. And I've read where in the polls your popularity is very big. What are some of the things you're hearing from some of the people here tonight that they would like to see?
Same thing. I mean, they put their faith and trust in me, and I can't let them down. I promise you I'm going to move this city forward.
Now, for the next police chief, that will have to be a new election? Well?
Yes. There will be an interim step in as soon as I'm take the position as mayor. and that interim will be until the next election in the spring.
And when will you take the position as mayor?
Hopefully in about 10 days.
10 days.
Yep.
Okay. All right, anything else you wanted to say to your new constituents?
Thank you for being here, and I promise you, I'm going to go to work starting Monday.
Congratulations, Mayor Fandel. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's it from here. I will tell you that this party that was supposed to be at a local cocktail lounge has bled out into streets. The streets are all blocked off for a decent area with the band going, and it looks like this is going to go on late into the night. Reporting from Slidell, Meg Farris, WWL, Louisiana.
Thanks so much, Meg. This has been a historic night in the city of Slidell as well. We'll have much more of our Election on 4 coverage right after a short break. Now, before we end our Election on 4 coverage tonight, we want to go back over the winners of these various races. Of course, starting with New Orleans Mayor Helena Moreno wins big, 55% of the vote tonight. Another major race, the city council leadership positions. Let's begin with those at-large races. The at-large races, Matthew Willard winning big outright tonight, 59% of the vote over Delisha Boyd, also a state lawmaker, and Matthew Hill. Matthew Willard winning the at-large Division 1 seat. J.P. Morrell winning a re-election bid for the at-large Division 2 seat. Handily, 66% of the vote coming in for J.P. Morrell, one of the leaders of the city council, and he will continue to be that as we move forward. Now let's get to the districts. District A, which is in Lakeview, this is going to a runoff. Holly Friedman, Amy McCarron, the two of them will be in a runoff in November. District B, Leslie Harris elected without opposition. District C, Freddie King III gets re-elected tonight. 64% of the vote to him. He is the incumbent councilman there. District D, that is another race that was easily won by Eugene Green, the incumbent in District D. He is reelected for another term tonight. And over in District E, we have another runoff between Cindy Nguyen. She's a former city council member in New Orleans. She won a larger margin of the vote tonight, but is going to a runoff with Jason Hughes. That also will be in November. Another huge race for the city of New Orleans and leadership is the Orleans Parish Sheriff's race, and there is a new sheriff in town. Michelle Woodfork winning that race, 53% of the vote tonight outright. Not a runoff in this case. She defeated easily the current sheriff, Susan Hudson. The Orleans Criminal District Court race appears to be headed to a runoff. It is headed to a runoff, in fact. Calvin Duncan came out with more votes tonight than the incumbent clerk of court. That's Darren Lombard. Lombard obviously has had some issues recently with evidence over at the court. Wondering if that may have played a factor. We'll have to see as this goes to a runoff in November. Hotly contested race there for clerk of court. Across the lake now, Slidell also had a mayor's race tonight. Randy Fandle, the chief of police in Slidell, has been elected as Slidell's next mayor easily, 72% to Bill Borchardt's 28%. Borchardt actually is the incumbent. Technically, he's been filling out the term of Cromer, who actually took a position in the Landry administration, the former Slidell mayor. So there will be another election in that case next spring. But right now, the police chief over in Slidell has been elected. We want to just take a quick moment before we leave you to thank our amazing analysts, Ron Fauché, Silas Lee, and WWL political analyst Clancy Dubose, a regular feature on our newscast. So thank you all so much for being with us. Your insight has just been phenomenal. Best in the state. We're so lucky to have you. We appreciate it. All right. And that is going to do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for being with us as we got, all of these results coming in this historic night, and the election on 4 coverage is going to end now. But thanks so much for watching and being with us. Have a great night.